You're watching North Penn Television on Channel 16.
Good evening. Tonight is the regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting of the North Penn School Board. Welcome to our proceedings tonight. We'll be talking about a varied number of topics which we will have action on at some future meeting. Tonight will be a discuss and ask questions and for presentation. And what we'll do in the normal course of each topic that we discuss, the board will ask questions first, and then if there are any questions from the members of the audience, you may step to the podium, give your name, and then ask your questions. You're requested to please keep your questions limited to 5 minutes. With that, we shall start. The first thing on the item, Dr. Elko.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to talk with you about the 94-95 proposed school calendar. If you would turn in your packet, you will find that. I'll highlight some of the features of the 94-95 calendar, and then certainly it's board's discretion to set the calendar as you please. The calendar would begin after Labor Day. Labor Day is the 5th of September. We are starting after the Jewish holiday, and the first day for students would be September 8th. The normal holidays in the calendar, as you'll see, Yom Kippur is a holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Martin Luther King, President's Holiday. The spring holiday, I would like to call your attention to April. I think there's some changes there that I would like to highlight for you. After the experience of this year and the number of snow days and having to make up the 3 days over the Easter holiday, we have built in regular school days that week. Originally, I was going to bring a calendar forward that would have had Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as school days, but several parents after this experience contacted me and said they'd prefer to have Good Friday and Easter Monday. A lot of families travel on Easter, and this would allow them to spend the night with their family members and then travel on the Monday. If there are no snow days, the last day for students would be the 12th of June. The probability of no snow days is highly unlikely. So for those of you that feel that ending the school year on Monday the 12th is going to occur, I doubt that it would under this calendar. I would suspect that we would be into school that week. Another feature that we put on the calendar is down in the bottom right, snow makeup days. We listed 9 snow makeup days so that it would be crystal clear in people's minds that you can have more than 4 or 5 snow days. Who knows how many? I picked 9 out of the air. Maybe it'll be 11, maybe it'll be 14, maybe it will be 4. The calendar calls for 181 student instructional days. That's the board's position right now in bargaining with the teachers, and 187 teacher days. There's an opening day for teachers to set up classrooms and a closing out day, and then there are some in-service days smattered through the year. There's a parent conference time scheduled in November, and there's one scheduled in May as well. There's also one in March. And the administration is here at the discretion of the board to set that calendar. I think people are anxious this month to have a calendar so that they can begin their planning for next year.
Are there any questions or discussion items?
I have a comment on Good Friday, Easter Monday. I don't have a problem with them, but I do have a problem with Thursday. That puts the driving day on Good Friday for those people that travel, which is just as bad to me, just as bad as traveling on Easter Sunday. So,
Whatever the board's pleasure is.
you made a comment about earlier, and pardon my ignorance, but what is the Jewish holiday that we're starting after?
Rosh Hashanah.
When is that?
It's
Monday and Tuesday.
Monday and Tuesday.
And Tuesday.
Yes.
Dr. Eklund, I would just like to ask whether you see that we're resolving the problems that occurred this year, because my experience has been in following what's happening in all the other school districts. The upset is whenever the last day of school that is supposed to be doesn't occur, and everyone's crying for snow days to be within the calendar, not at the end of the school year. And we are still leaving that to fall that way. Now, last year, we had the blizzard of '93. The last school day was somewhere in the week earlier, the 15th or the 14th. If you check the night crier of last year, you'll find articles on the movement to try to eliminate the snow days from the end, to get a grace period from the district to relinquish those days for the seniors. It was sort of, perhaps not as extreme as it is this year, but it was still a problem in the minds of the students that day was not.
Someone would have to explain to me how you put the snow days into the school year and not have a floating end of the year if you're going to have the students attend school 181 days. If you explain it, we'll do it that way.
Well, traditionally, as we did this year, we ended up, although it wasn't designated that way, moving the snow days from the end of the year to take those spring break days and etc.
Yes.
However, we could leave those days there, but list them Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as snow days. It would be snow days that are in the calendar, and if the weather would turn out to be in our favor this year, I don't think we'll have many complaints about the school year ending earlier. We could also designate other days within this calendar and accomplish that. What I see happening here is we're now cornered at the end of the year, and I think we're going to be facing the same sort of outcries that we've seen this school year. And we won't have the flexibility within this calendar unless we're going for
Let's make
President's
it the
Day.
23rd of June then, the last day of school.
I'm just,
Is that
And
what
then
you're
if we
saying?
finish sooner, fine.
I'll tell you, I'm just from the news, it didn't seem to matter when the last day was supposed to be. Some school districts were only pushed forward to the 17th. Our calendar was originally established for the last day of school to be the 20th. We're now at the 23rd. But once that message went out that that we were removing some of these excess days and the date got moved up, that's when all the complaints came about that the 20th is now too late. The 21st and 22nd is now too late.
So if we set the date later than the 12th, let's say we set it 5 days further into June, and if we have snow days, then we simply don't make up the snow days.
I believe.
But if we don't have snow days, then we adjust the end of the year backwards earlier.
I
Whatever
think
the board's
psychologically
pleasure would
the
be.
impact is going to be better. It's going to be more favorable. Or else we'll be right back here making deals over how we're going to
guess-
make up time and not, save the seniors from graduation days.
I guess I have a little bit of a problem back from when the time was that we had, which basically the Easter break, when we had a week off there, but they were designated as snow days. The attendance was lousy because when you had a week off advertised, but it may be snow, a lot of people made plans. And when they turned into snow days, they went anyhow and they took the kids out of school. And I think that when you look at the dynamics of it, if we just tell people now, those aren't days off, you're going to have Good Friday and the Monday after Easter off, people aren't going to make those kind of plans, and we're going to have the attendance during that time period. And somewhere, you're going to make up snow days. And so they're at the end of the year. And I think that if we publish a calendar that says it's that way, we're likely to get better results. I guess I like the way the administration did it.
I think what Vicky's saying now is do it the way you're saying it, but just don't say that June 12th is the last day. Tell everybody that June 30th or June 29th is the last day, And then if we don't have those days, if we don't need those days for snow, then we end at the 181st day.
But you
No,
still
I'm
have to
saying
have
use
181
designated
days.
snow
Your
I'm
calendar,
not saying that.
no, but your calendar has to show 181 days.
Well,
So,
if you mark the
At
last
so
9 days.
at least 181
snow
days. So if you say the 23rd is your last day, then you're gonna have to show 6 days off
No.
somewhere else.
In June.
So you're gonna
No.
say that the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd are days off, but graduation's gonna be the 23rd?
Not necessarily.
You know,
Not necessarily.
No.
Right. We'll know
I'm
by
not sure
April
how you're-
1st to make that April decision that we have to make.
So you
for
pull it up
graduation.
graduation day,
And then
not
we
push
can-
it back.
yeah.
Yeah.
And people that have made plans know better than to make them until the 30th.
it's the same thing with snow days. I
That-
mean,
it-
you know,
that-
it's,
yeah,
it's
Terry,
it's kind of psychological
It's
saying,
psychological
which is kind of-
the impact.
well, if they, you know,
It's
if
better
they
to-
have any indication that for the last 2 years, you know, we've had major snowstorms, they should realize it. I mean, it's kind of like really kind
Well,
of,
they didn't.
they
Well,
didn't because
no.
we started taking it off the Easter break, but now that it's, the Easter break
This year has
is
been
set.
such an anomaly. You know, in most years, people understand, and there are 3 or 4 or 5 snow days. When you have 14 snow days, as North Penn has had in most of the districts in this part of the state, it creates horrendous hardships for everyone. No one plans 14 snow days. It just doesn't happen. That's the dilemma of this year. But we will be happy to do whatever the board directs us to do with the calendar.
My statement before had been that what had happened in school districts that I had been in was that they would add 4 days or 5 days. And then, so in other words, you would go the 11th, 12th, 13th, and they would add the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. If by the end of January or the end of March, those days hadn't been taken, then you would extend the spring break. And that's how we used to handle it in the school districts that I was in. As in going to school. That was the only thing, but it was never 2 weeks. It was always maybe 4 days tops that was added to it. And therefore, it could be offset with saying, fine, now you can have the whole week of Passover
I
and Easter.
think you would
Yeah,
find
right.
more people that would rather, if you didn't use those days at the end, instead of finishing late in June, finish earlier in June and have them subtracted from June.
And that was the whole reason they wanted us to take.
Our
those.
attendance was excellent during Easter week. We had approximately 11% of our students out district-wide. And that's with a number of families who anticipated us being off the entire week and made vacation or family plans, and another 170 students from a music group that were away. So our attendance was really excellent. So I think there are less people that travel than we'd like to believe over the Easter holidays.
I'd also like to say President's Day, the single holidays that are there are potential designated snow days. Quite frankly, this is when it's closer to the time when the children are actually probably occurring, you know, the snow days are occurring. They are the ones that parents have the most difficulty accommodating the care of their children, because many of them do not have off for these single holidays, as opposed to the others. So I would consider, even if we were to designate them, it could possibly fall that the snow day would occur after that event. But we used President's Day this year. Martin Luther King Day was there, but it was actually turned out to be a snow day in itself anyway. But there are possibilities too. I just kept hearing, put the snow days in the calendar, and this is the way they've been in the calendar for the past few years. And whenever there's been snow days, there's been complaints.
Yeah.
And the previous one was something like the 15th, like I said, and when the snow days occurred, there were complaints.
Well, the calendar this year says last day for students on the 17th of June. And obviously, we didn't make that. And I think that we need to get away from that to a tentative last day, and that will be adjusted, just as we say in the calendar that we're going to set graduation day around the first week of April. So should we set the last week of school, or last day of school, because hopefully by then we won't have any snow. I mean, we can debate this all night, but we have a lot of things on the agenda tonight. Let's give some direction to the administration. They'll rework the calendar as you see fit. Is there a general consensus that we want to have some extended day and pick a point make that point on the calendar and say that's gonna be our tentative last day, and if we can give some days back, great. If we have to go beyond that, well, we're sorry. That happens. And if it gets to be the extraordinary, 1 in 50 years like we had this year, then we can say, we'll look at President's Day, because by that time, hopefully, we will know that we're running out of days, and we'll take President's Day, or we'll work something else in March. If that's your feelings, then let's press on.
I don't like the idea of adding days to the calendar, trying to play mind games with the parents and saying, we're gonna try and trick you. We want you to think it's the 23rd, but we might surprise you. I mean,
Let you
who are
off
we
early.
kidding here? Let's make the calendar, and if stuff happens, stuff happens. We work with it. I don't know if it's gonna snow.
Well, we need to figure out what a reasonable number of days for snow will be. Take a guess, and maybe it's not 2 weeks.
14 isn't it?
Right. But this year, 4 wasn't it either.
No,
so,
it wasn't.
well,
pick somewhere in
any
the middle.
The
recommendations?
administration has down
Let's
here
pick
that the
5.
snow makeup days go out to June 23rd.
Okay.
So I
Because
would
we picked
recommend-
9,
Pardon me?
because we picked 9 days.
Right. I'm just saying, I'm just going with that recommendation and saying, make the 23rd the last day of school.
Can I throw in a suggestion here also? You talked about graduation. Could we possibly say that graduation will be on X day and
No. July 1st.
We don't
you've
know.
added those days?
We're still in a contract negotiating year here.
I
wouldn't
wouldn't,
know.
I
understand.
wouldn't break
Well,
that
you can do
mold.
graduation for seniors and you can change the dates. That has nothing to do with the 181 days. I mean,
That
we're
takes
I
all the
see.
flexibility out if you set graduation day now. What happens when we finish school on the 17th or the 13th, and then now they're gonna wait till the 23rd to graduate? I don't think so.
Well, you're basically saying the same exact thing, though,
No,
by
we're
putting in the
not.
dates.
We're saying,
It'll be the
first
board
of all,
president, the superintendent, and Dr. Bond standing there with nobody else in this.
You're saying, oh, by the way, it's the 23rd, but, it may be later. I mean,
Well, we're
it's
saying
kind
that
of,
it may be sooner, but, and that's why I think that the policy of not getting into graduation day on this calendar is a good policy. Let's take that separate from this calendar and just address, when do you want the last day of school to be the tentative last day of school?
May I say something? For those of us who answer the phones regularly and talk to parents, and that includes building principals and building secretaries, I'm very fearful that if we select a date such as the 23rd, although I hear good reasons for it, I'm afraid that no one will respect that date, and it will immediately have no meaning for anyone. And it's going to be very hard for 50 or 75 people on the phone with parents trying to explain why this artificial date has meaning when we may or may not use the days, because I fear that parents will decide it has no meaning at all.
But won't we know by this time, I agree with you, but won't we know by this time next year whether or not we're going to stick with the 23rd?
I believe no announcement
But
should be made
they
until
begin
now.
asking now.
But the calendar's published at the beginning
I
of the
wouldn't do
year.
that.
And so they're looking at
As
it,
soon
and
as
they're
we vote
saying,
on it.
well, I'm gonna take my vacation on the first week of school
You're
now.
going to get the questions and the arguments either way. Right now, the date that's on there is the last day of school, has no meaning because of snow, in a negative way.
That's what I'm saying, let's set 4 or 5 days, whatever we think's reasonable, maybe 9's reasonable, maybe 4's reasonable, I don't know.
14th this year, 9th reasonable.
You know,
I
to
don't
me, putting some school days in and saying the tentative last day of school is the 16th is a lot more probabilistic than doing it on the 13th or the 12th. I mean, and it's probably a better guess than the 23rd. It's up to you to set it. Let's come up with a date and press on. I mean, I don't know why we have to debate
June 23rd.
over the 14th or the 15th.
It's gonna be 181 student days after we start. And
If you get a teacher
everybody
contract,
knows
if you
how
do, it's 180.
snow days work,
Is it
and
too
sometimes
late?
we've had none, and sometimes we've had 14. But I'm not uncomfortable with the way it's laid out here. I think that people can understand it, and I would support it as it is.
I think we should remember that the complaints and the confusion, if there was confusion, came from a very small percentage of the total number of families and the total number of students in the school district. I mean, certainly there were questions and concerns, but a very small percentage of the families registered dismay or concern. That would be my opinion at any rate.
I would agree with you, Ken. If community has them.
Any community members want to have to provide input? Let's hear from the folks out there.
Come to the
Not.
microphone.
Good try.
12.
You
It is the
25 parents that are here tonight understand it, have been through it. It's the other 11,000 parents that I don't want calling me at home and trying to explain to them why we're doing this.
And that number is?
What do we think the reasonable number of snow days is? To me, that's probably. The old system
Before
was
this year.
180 days and then everyone
Stay
goes.
At the end.
What
At
day
the
would
end.
that have put?
The same one.
That's
Same
where
one,
we're
the 12?
Yeah, we added an extra day, it's 181 days. Why don't we just say
Actually, under the old system, the last day of school is the 9th. 180 days. Right now, it's 181 and the students
12th.
get out of the 12th.
Right.
180 days puts us on the 9th. That technically could be the last day of school if we don't get a change in the teacher's contract
Oh, please.
that extends it beyond 180 days.
Is there an outright objection to the 23rd, or it's,
I think 23rd
I
is
mean,
good date, and we
can we
get
take a
it back
consensus
if we
on
don't
this,
know.
maybe? or-
Dick, can I clarify just one thing? The teacher contract relates only to the teacher work year. We have 185 teacher days that we contract for under the current existing contract. We could have 185 student days if that's what we chose to do. We do not negotiate with the teachers over the student calendar. Now, what you're looking at here is that as a result of the final offer that we made that included 2 additional days, it was decided that one of those days, decided by the board that one of those days would be a student day. But all 187 could be if that's what we ended up with.
Thank you, Fred.
June 23rd.
Well, I like this calendar like right the way it is. It takes into consideration our major problem this year. We've taken the 3 days that would have been spring break. It's a major change from years past. We have those days built into the calendar. I think it's normal. It's something that the community understands. We should designate that the 12th is the last day and put those snow days, 9 of them, not 5, not 14, but 9, put them in there, mark it on the calendar somehow that they are snow days and they will be used if necessary.
David, that's the way it's currently in the calendar. Right now, it says snow days, and then it talks about how to call, and then it says snow days are required. They will be scheduled in the following order: June
And-
20th, 21st,
And the vast
22nd.
majority of people read that calendar year after year, and they understand it perfectly well.
I agree with Dave.
So be it.
So why on the-
So do I. Is that fine? Great.
No.
That's fine.
Any other
No.
questions?
It's 4.
Is it?
We're not voting.
We're not voting.
Well, it's
just- is there
consensus.
5 people?
I don't have a problem with Dave's proposition.
I do still have a problem with full Thursday.
That's what I've been hearing from parents. They thought Thursday, Friday, and Monday
Thursday,
would be a
Friday,
reasonable
Monday.
reduction.
Well, I think we've got a consensus on this.
What do you think on Thursday?
So they're gonna.
That's what I was hearing, that people didn't mind so much if it were cut down, but they saw the tradition, where the districts that don't utilize the full week for spring break, they use a Thursday, Friday, and Monday.
Well, if we take Thursday, then we only really gain 2 days that week in the calendar. Monday, essentially Monday and Tuesday.
But I just felt that way that I guess fits their family
Anyone
travel.
else looking at Thursday as a day off? Okay. Any comments from the audience? Questions regarding the calendar? Okay.
There's one mistake on this calendar, very minor, very minor, dare I bring it up?
No, you don't.
Under April, the description there where it says April 17th, school resumes, it should be April 18th. Okay.
Oh, that changes everything.
That will be on the agenda for a vote then with, as is.
I want to change my consensus.
Okay, that's fine.
Now we get to talk about graduation date for
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah,
I got some more mints over here.
I received some calls from parents and met with a representative group of parents of our graduating seniors in the high school last week and with Dr. Vaughn and some of those parents. And the parents are concerned with the current end of the school year. The current end of the school year, the last day for students is Thursday, June 23rd. And while a number of students and parents would prefer to see graduation be the previous Friday, the 17th of June, as I talked with those parents, they felt that a reasonable compromise might be that their sons and daughters graduate on Tuesday, the 21st of June. The reasons that were given were as follows. I think I would summarize them and say that there maybe fall into three categories, and I believe that there might be some parents or students that want to address the board on this topic. First, there are a number of students who each day that they lose in the summer from work is money out of their pockets to help pay for their college education, for their room, board, tuition, textbooks, etc. Another group of students has to leave early for college. That was the second reason given. And the third reason is that a number of reservations have been made and plans have been made for senior week activities. Not to have, as some people characterized in the sound-off column, wild parties and drinking and drugs and all those things, but pretty much as some parents describe it to me, a rite of passage that has existed for many, many years for seniors all over the area, a reward that parents provide their sons and daughters for 13 hard years of work, a way to say thank you and reward them, an opportunity for the seniors who aren't going to see many of their classmates after that point to really have a week away from home. And those parents and representatives of senior class have asked me to request to the board that you grant the opportunity for them to graduate 2 days early, which would mean that for our graduating seniors, they would go 178 school days. Now, the school district would lose a little under $4,000 in state subsidy payments. There are approximately 15 teachers who teach senior-only classes. And I said to Dr. Bond, as this began to perk in terms of a request, those teachers are going to need to be involved in meaningful activities, and Dr. Bond indicated, and several board members are aware of this program, that we would use that opportunity to work with those teachers on our tech prep program, that program for our non-college bound students, to help those teachers better understand and work in that program. I indicated to the parents that I can't waive the 180-day requirement as superintendent. Only you can do that as a board of directors. But we need to set a graduation date. I need some direction from you tonight. I would prefer not to wait for a formal vote next Thursday. Families, one way or the other, whatever you decide, need to know whether it's going to be on the 180th day, which is Thursday, the 23rd of June, or the 178th day for students, which would be the 21st, which is a Tuesday night. So it's up to you folks.
Question, Alan, on
Yes.
the subsidies that we're going to lose. The new state bill, Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, but they take it into shortening the year for seniors, and we wouldn't lose money for.
I was just going, I don't know what the new bill is, Carmen. I know that in the past, there's a calculation
Right,
that you can do based upon the average daily membership and.
But the
and
bill
I-
that was just passed said that the year could be shortened for the seniors, so, I mean, we would want to look into it, but, as far as the graduation date, I think, given that, they don't do much that week anyway.
They take finals.
They take
They would be jamming up their finals a little bit more.
I don't see any problem with the 21st,
Are you gonna start finals 2 days earlier?
Yes.
For seniors?
Yes.
For seniors.
the seniors only.
So we're not really jamming
Not
them up, we're
jamming
just
them up.
starting them 2 days
Well,
early?
you're right,
Okay.
but there may be some cases where some of the seniors are taking more than one.
Oh, okay.
As I just heard with the discussion prior to this, we were saying that this method of you putting the days at the end was very clear, yet the calendar that was adopted by the board last year stated that the days for snow days would be 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Now we're playing Let's Make a Deal for senior time. There are 15 teachers that are seniors only. How many teachers are at the high school that would traditionally be spending their day teaching juniors and seniors?
There are any number of teachers that teach mixed classes there.
How many of the, well, I'm looking for numbers, how many are going to be underutilized? They may have a class of seniors for the first period, their next class is juniors, their next class is, their third period may be seniors.
Frankly, when the teachers are
and
giving
it's-
exams, there may be, they're sitting there proctoring and kids are taking an exam. So, if you want to talk about underutilization, they're not really teaching. They're sitting there, students are taking exams, they're correcting exams from other periods. That's what they would be doing.
But they'll be doing
Calculating
that,
final grades.
they'll be doing that for finals anyway. The finals are going to take place. So now we're saying, well, half the time we can't use them as much as they should be anyway,
right.
so it's okay to do it for these 2 days.
This is a request from the parents and the seniors.
And I
for 2 days.
understand that, I can sympathize, but the educational message here, it sounds like poor policy to be making deals and sending out messages, well, these 2 days aren't all that important anyway. Because if you get down to the other student body, they're gonna absorb that very same message. It's there, and we are talking about, once again, we are going to shift teaching time to busy time, for the teachers to just do something with this time that we're gonna basically relinquish our students from, and we've just been through that. I don't know, Fred, if you have the count, how many hours have to be made up at the end of the school year by the teachers who didn't have the personal days time, or?
I don't have that information with me, but there are a number of people that took their personal days and used them instead. But there are a number of people that also will make the time up. As long as you've asked me a question about this, if I can just go a little bit further with it, I would like to indicate for the full board to understand that as complicated as that period of time happened to be, I feel extraordinarily good about the way it was handled. The teachers performed enormously well. There was an opportunity for people to take time off. They were asked by the President of the Association not to do that, and they did not. We had virtually nobody out other than the people who were allowed to go, and as a result of the problem we had. The same thing was true with all the other people that served the district. I don't know how any district could have handled that situation any better than the way it was handled with our group of employees, and I really think they all need to be commended for that.
Fred, I agree with you. As a matter of fact, you weren't there at the meeting, but I passed to Dr. Elko that we certainly
Last day
needed
now is the
to
23rd.
state
It's a Thursday.
our appreciation, because the teachers did have the potential to paralyze the school district. Your staff did an excellent job in bringing together all those substitutes and lining up the staff so that everything did run smoothly.
Vicki, I do appreciate that, but let me just interrupt for a minute, because I have never known, other than in a strike situation, where our teachers truly talked about the want to paralyze the school district.
No.
And in this situation, they could not have been more cooperative. I'm also saying, though, that it wasn't just the teachers. The administrators, the support staff, they all did that. And I think they all need to be commended for that.
You're right, Fred. And many of you may have read the article in the Philadelphia Inquirer on Easter week, how Philadelphia opened for one day and it was a fiasco. It was really a wasted day. Instruction. Most board members have children in our schools that attended school during Easter week. Instruction went on. There was, and tests went on. And I heard complaints about that, but life went on. But the message was school would operate in the same way, and we would honor the vacations. This is a tough situation, and they're asking for some indulgences. And you can say that it's the wrong message, but talk to kids in their senior year and ask whether 2 days are going to make a whole lot of difference in their life, and talk to them.
I think having the 2 days off might help them.
Yeah.
Could I ask for that information, though, Fred, if you could get that, the instructional time that's now transferred to the to after the end of the school year as a result of?
I can give you part of that answer right now. None of the instructional time is being transferred because instruction occurred during that period of time. I can tell you
By
how
the
many
teachers.
people
Right.
will be making the time up.
That there are hours due that will be served by the
I would tell you, though,
professional
that
staff that, not the substitute. but-
I want to tell you that it's not busy work. We cram in 185 teacher days what other professions are able to do in 240 days. We have our teachers for a limited period of time. There's a lot of curriculum work to do. There's a lot of preparation to do. And it isn't just busy work. You know, many of you work in corporations, and on snow days, business isn't as usual, and you sit at your desk and you can catch up on things, and, you know, and there is meaningful work that's done.
But it's gonna be difficult because now it's not a full day. Like I said, they may have a class scheduled for one period and then they may have an empty classroom the next period.
Right. But that doesn't mean people aren't going to be doing work.
Are there also classes where the juniors and seniors are placed together?
Oh, yes.
Then how are they going to feel that when the juniors go into class, half their class is missing?
No,
All exams.
they'll be taking exams. Once the seniors are gone, there will be activities for the juniors, the sophomores and juniors to finish out the year. I know that at the end of the year, there's always an end-of-the-year assembly for honors and awards for underclassmen and some other activities planned for them. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of kids returning materials, all those sorts of things that have to be done, paying up debts and returning textbooks and
Well,
that
we've
kind of
always
stuff.
been the designated snow days. I do concern myself that next year we may be making, we could end up with a strike situation. I hope not, but it's a potential there we have to think about. We will have some snow days, and we could have the seniors of next year expecting that we're going to make the same kind of compromises that we are also this year, because we could say it's unique in that we had a heavy winter snowstorm. But we have not gone that far into the designated snow days. We're still only within 4 days of what was originally designated here.
Actually,
And no one complained, but we will
It's
hear it
because
again
of the
next year.
extraordinary effort that we took throughout the year to take away days. And there's a lot of parents that were concerned that they didn't have their teacher conferences when they were scheduled, because we took those days away. The good thing about this is we have the schedule, we have a whole nother year, and we're gonna have to make those same kind of decisions if we get another extraordinary year. The good thing is that we've built some days in. The seniors know that they're not gonna find out when they're gonna graduate until around the first week of April. So there's no claims made, and there's nothing implied that we're gonna give them 2 extra days off because we gave the last class 2 extra days off. Did the class this year expect to go 180 days? I think so. So the fact that we're giving them 2 days isn't really a problem.
Alan, how many people called, if you can hazard a guess?
5 or 6 calls in the group that I met with were a representative group of about 8 or 9. And certainly as I talked with them, my appraisal is they represented far more than those
Teacher
numbers of
government.
people.
Student government.
Mr. Bowman,
Hang on.
what exactly does the calendar say about snow days for this year?
It says that we'll have 4 snow days,
Does it date?
made up in the order of 20, 21, 22, 23.
24.
That was it, to the 23rd.
But it's
So
in-
technically, school is ending on the 4th school snow day that we had in the
It's not,
calendar.
it's not like it's beyond.
No.
We're following the same format for this year's
Right,
calendar,
I think
the
we're going,
next
I
year's
think
calendar.
The difference is we
we're
took,
gonna have the same problem
another
that we're
7 or
having
8
now
days out of the
next
calendar.
year.
no, we're not.
These are designated snow days. We should have school, full session.
See if there's a consensus to just which one or the
How
other.
many are in favor of looking at the 22nd, was it
21st.
21st?
Aye.
For seniors only.
For seniors only.
For seniors only.
I agree with that. One.
I'm in favor.
Carmen, David? Yes or no?
I'd like to know the number of
Been
hours.
sitting here thinking about it
time
for 10
hours.
minutes, and I honestly can't make up my
Okay,
mind.
you're an abstain.
No, I mean, there is an issue of $4,000,
Look,
and there
folks,
is...
we can't cogitate about this all night. We have to get something done. Everybody's gotta make up their mind one way or another, whether it's the 21st or the 23rd.
Dick, we're not
So we
voting
can
tonight.
give, we can give some direction to Dr. Elko so they can start making some plans, and we'll vote on it next week. But at
I would
least
ask
we
you,
should
if you can reach consensus tonight, we would
try to
just,
do that.
we wouldn't even put it on the agenda next Thursday. That's another
I think we should still vote on it, because Donna's not.
9 days. Okay. Know
That's not
then
fair.
that what we need to say to seniors is it's another,
What?
I'd like to
9
know
days waiting.
the
I'm just
number of
saying, she's
staff
not here.
that's
She might
involved
vote
in
against it.
teaching the senior class. How many teachers are involved here? that
Seniors
we-
only
I think
15.
that's,
Forever, we don't
pardon me?
need to.
Not,
Teaching's-
not seniors only. How many teachers at the high school teach juniors and seniors? Teach seniors whether
Does
they're
that
supposed
really
to?
matter?
I think it does.
okay, we'll get that for you.
What's it matter if we're gonna let the whole entire class of 900
I've talked
off
to
a
the
couple
seniors.
extra days, if a couple teachers, 15 or so, have to sit on their hands or have to do something else in the classroom rather than teach?
Dick, there's also all those who are going to be teaching a classroom that may contain that should contain 15 seniors and 10 juniors. They're gonna have a class of 10
Then
juniors
there's
instead.
nothing that says that the juniors can't have an instructional day. Just because they've taken their final doesn't mean they can't learn something. Or maybe set them up for next year. What you can expect from taking this course next year that I also teach as a teacher, for example. Why can't that happen?
Because 10 juniors, that teacher's gonna move forward and teach a normal class when 3/4 of the class is getting off. And those juniors are gonna feel like they've been treated fairly by being forced to be there.
They don't care. The juniors don't care. They really don't.
No.
Look, if they're taking classes with the
Juniors
seniors,
don't care. Put that in
they're there because they want to be. in
Seriously,
class.
they're going to be in the class, let's be realistic.
Intuitive
How much
obvious,
concentration are the
casual
seniors
observer.
going to have? What difference is it going to
We could say that
make?
about all of our children
Right,
that
if we
week.
can't
The
reach a
last week of
consensus
school,
tonight,
no
we're
one
gonna
is
move
in the
on.
mood to be there. They all want
Is
off.
there anyone from the audience that wants to comment on this one way or another?
Speak up. Tom was gonna
Tom, you
comment.
want to make the audience?
To the mic.
I'd like to hear some representation from
That's
this,
what we're-
from the school, because, well, some of these other issues we had, like the class, I think the senior class president, we had a few people, and we heard them out, and I think we ought to listen to what, where they're coming from.
Fine,
We're
we have
missing our
to
representatives.
go to the mic, please.
I understand that. I sympathize. They don't care.
I've talked to the juniors, and I've talked to the seniors, and I've talked to the
sympathize with
sophomores.
them, but it's bad policy, and I'm sorry, it sets us
Hi,
example. You can't
I'm
make
Sam
it away next
Clarko.
year.
I'm the vice president of the senior class. And myself and two of the students from the class would like to present our views and let you know how we feel. Adrian?
My name is Adrienne Bellino. I'm Vice President of the Student Government Association, and I'm speaking on behalf of the students who are working. As one of 6 children, it's my responsibility to pay my way through college, and those 2 days that I could use working could be as much as a textbook for me, and every day counts as far as how much my check is going to read. And I'd just like to speak on behalf of them and ask that you seriously consider allowing us those 2 days of leeway, because it will mean a lot to some of us.
Great.
You have one coming?
My name is Amy Rollins, and I would like to introduce myself as a straight-A senior from the graduating class of 1994. I'm speaking on behalf of the senior class tonight to give you a perspective of our dilemma, hoping to influence your decision on the date of our commencement ceremony. As I'm sure many of you know, Senior Week comes upon us to traditionally celebrate the completion of our journey through years of education and to mark the beginning of a new journey into our future lives. Speaking from a personal experience, I and 7 other girls went to the shore searching for a house for Senior Week on January 9th. At that time, we only experienced 2 days off from school due to the weather. It was after that, unfortunately, that the real winter began, giving us more than an unusual amount of snowfall. As the winter progressed, it made us start to realize that our future plans for Senior Week may be affected. Unfortunately, the snow did not care whether or not we were reimbursed for payments or had signed contracts for houses at the shore in June. As many of you probably know, these contracts cannot be broken, and therefore it is now beyond our control to rearrange the dates of our vacation. It is, however, in your control to choose the date of our graduation. I personally feel that graduating on June 21st would be an agreement benefiting both the senior class and the school board. This compromise is definitely a win for both. Due to the non-refundable deposits, many students have chosen to commute to and from the shore and school each day final exam is held, if the date of graduation is chosen to be June 23rd. This will require a lot of traveling and brings about an unsafe situation for many of my classmates. Because of these problems, I feel that our graduation ceremony will be best held on Tuesday, June 21st. For many of us, this will be our last memory to share with our closest friends.
Any other students or parents that would like to speak? Did the students change anyone's mind?
I could.
Okay.
One parent.
One parent.
I'm Lynn Janoff, resident of Lansdale, and I'm the parent of a North Penn High School senior, and I strongly support the Tuesday, June 21st graduation date. My daughter and many of her friends and classmates will be leaving for college the end of August. Many have secured jobs which begin on Monday, June 27th, and they plan to work throughout the summer until college begins. The vacation week that they have planned at the shore for June 18th through June 25th is the only summer vacation they will have. I am deeply concerned for their safety if they should find it necessary to travel back and forth from the shore to take their finals and to take part in their graduation ceremony. By allowing them to graduate on June 21st, they would only have to make this trip once. I feel that this would be a safe, fair solution to this problem. Please allow our seniors to graduate on Tuesday, June 21st. They've been a great class. They spread a lot of goodwill. They made a wonderful impression at the Mount Airy Lodge. They're welcome to come back. They've spread goodwill. We had a person at the school board last meeting who has been a strong detractor of our high school, who stood up here and told you that after he visited the high school, he took back so much that he had said in the past and that how impressed he was by our students. The students that reached out to him that day and made him feel welcome and made him feel good were seniors. They have spread so much goodwill through the things that they have done for the community and for their school. Please, let their year end with goodwill. Let there be goodwill between the North Penn School District and the senior class of 1994.
Any other discussion on the board?
A suggestion for compromise?
I don't think one day helps.
Is that a public speaker coming?
Dr. Barnes?
Dr. Bond, are you a resident of the district?
Yes,
he is.
has to be.
I'm Juan Bond. I live in Montgomery Township. However,
I thought you lived in Tormenson at the high school.
well, that's what I'd like to speak to you about for just a moment. I'm not going to take a lot of time, but I want you to know that I feel rather strongly about the 21st of June for a number of reasons. One is that when you talk about the 12th versus the 14th versus the 15th, it's significantly different in terms of how much time youngsters have to work, how much time they have for vacation, and how much time they have at whatever they do. I'm a high school principal, and I live with these young people every day. These young people, be it good, bad, or indifferent, have become my life. We work very hard, you and we, to do the best thing for our young people. And I don't think that when you get into a situation where you try to work with the young people to get a win-win, that anyone loses. When I called the senior class together and talked about the graduation date, they were not happy that I wasn't representing June 17th. Then they made that very clear to me. One of the reasons that you didn't get more phone calls, quite frankly, is because I asked the class not to call. I spoke with the class at length about June 17th versus the 21st and why I personally could not support the 17th. And I think it's to their credit that they have not made those phone calls, and they have asked their parents not to do so. And I think that counts for something. I think that counts for something. And in terms of what happens after the youngsters take the finals, what teachers are going to be doing the day after the finals are going over the finals. They'll be talking about the questions that were on the exams. They'll be asking youngsters about their opinions of those questions and their answers to those questions. I take tremendous exception to anyone that thinks that a day like that cannot be put to good use, regardless as to whether you have 10 students in a class or 1. The fact is, if seniors are there, whether we like it or not, when you establish a date for seniors, they back it up from there. We're going to provide meaningful service for youngsters, and that doesn't always mean that they have to have their nose in a book. Our assembly program for the underclass persons at the high school is at least as significant as any exam that we give. Honoring those young people is important, and there's some people may think that's a waste of time, but to us, that's what makes North Penn young people special. And I'm here to tell you, I've been with them enough, and I hear enough to know that they are special. And that's because of you, it's because of us, but most importantly, it's because of them. It's because of them. And I feel when they make this kind of request, that is not a disservice to anyone to honor it, because I don't think the request is unreasonable. And with that, I support their wish. Their wish is the 17th. Don't lose sight of that fact. My wish is the 21st, and they are supporting my wish. When you get 700 teenagers to support the principal's wish to do something they don't want, I think that I need to stand up and say something about that, and that's what I'm doing. So I thank you. And I hope I didn't take too much time, Mr. Bowman.
Thank you. You took your 5 minutes.
I think we're to try to get a consensus.
I do too.
I
I
think
think
Dr.
they need
Elko
to
asked
know.
for a consensus tonight.
The problem with putting it on for an official vote next Thursday is it delays, and it just pushes it out further. So
We typically make these announcements about end-of-the-year activities at
And
on
we've
the 1st
delayed
of
it.
April, and we've already delayed, so.
I'm in favor of the 21st.
Do you want to know my compromise date?
Which is?
Saturday, the 24th.
Push it forward.
Excuse me? Saturday, the 24th.
Yeah.
That's not a compromise.
Fine.
Which calendar are we looking at?
Same
It's a
one.
Friday.
Is that the date?
No, it's a
You're saying later?
Saturday.
Right
Thought I
now,
had
the
the
last
wrong
day is the 23rd.
So they're going to hang around for 2 days before they graduate.
The last
I'll,
day right now is the 23rd, as it is.
Well,
I
we
mean,
have
if
a
they
lot of
work away
respect
for
for
the
the
week or
students for
whatever,
that.
they can come back and have graduation, and they start.
Oh,
their
I
job
see
on
what you're saying, they
27th
wouldn't have the
instead of
travel time. They'd have to
back
be
in
there
the
for
middle of the
finals though,
week.
Terry. If the calendar stayed the way it would normally remain, they would be taking finals all the way through up until the day for graduation. So they would need to be in school.
21st.
They'd have to be there for the morning.
21st.
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 Great, 21st.
I just want to comment, I just don't think those extra 2 days, the students are going to gain anything out of those 2 extra days. And every business, the whole community endured financial hardships because of this harsh winter.
Well, we may not have to, so that we're going to look
That's
into.
great.
Dr. Bond, would you make sure that our seniors tomorrow understand that we expect all of them at graduation on the 21st?
And I'm wondering, are they going to take off
Thank you.
for those 2 days?
We move on to the earned
Thank
income
you.
tax report. Mr. Kelly.
Yes. I think Mr. Reckamp is going to handle that this evening.
Yeah, I'm going to, this is, as the last time we talked about this is basically a political discussion. And I would like to introduce Ernie Pirmani from Berkheimer Associates, and I'd like him to make a presentation. And I'll follow that up before we open it up to the board. Ernie?
Thank you. What I'd like to do is just review the information that we've done for North Penn School District, and that is an earned income tax analysis. And included in that analysis, what we've offered are some projected estimated figures that should the board decide to levy an earned income tax, what you might be able to realize from those, that tax levy. And in the analysis, we've broken it down by a first-year collection, which would mean if the tax was enacted July 1 of 1994, for your school year 94-95, gone into a full-year collection. That, when we refer to a full-year collection, would be the following school year. And we based those projections on a 1% levy, taking into consideration some of the municipalities that presently have the tax. So if I may begin by, I guess, the teeth of it all, is start out with the projection estimates and do a little bit of explanation about that and just a quick review of the tax in general and some of the ways that we've come up with the projected figures. If the school district would decide to levy an earned income tax for the school year 1994-95, again, a first-year collection at a 1% levy, we estimate that it would generate approximately $7,800,000 to $7,950,000. Now, we also calculated in there that there's been some discussion on, because of the way the taxes are due, that they're due at the end of a quarter. Normally, the fourth quarter, for all purposes, would come into the next school year. But because of the taxes being really assessed prior to the June 30th, the close of that year, there's been some discussion of the possibility of using the accrual method, and we've calculated an estimated figure into that. So if the district would decide to go into a accrual method for the first year, we estimate the figures could be $9,800,000 to $10 million. Again, that's at a 1% levy. A full-year collection, looking into the following year of the school year 95-96, again, being a full 1%, that is not taking into consideration that any municipalities within the school district, other than those that have it, would come in and share the tax. We estimate that it could generate as much as $14,300,000 to $14,700,000. And the third category of the projected figures that we've offered is we've taken into consideration that if all the municipalities in the following school year, that being the 95-96 school year, would come in and begin to share in the tax levy or enact their own 0.5%, we estimate that those figures then would come in to be between $8,200,000 to $8,340,000. Again, they're based on a 1% levy, taking in consideration that the Borough of North Wales presently has an earned income tax and levies it at 1%. The Borough of Hatfield presently has an earned income tax, but their levy is only 0.5%. So should the district decide to enact an earned income tax, you would immediately begin to make that additional levy in the Borough of Hatfield. However, in the Borough of North Wales, you would have to wait through the proper legal procedures to give them notice to begin sharing in that. Based on our study, we've indicated that the working population, the average income per working population range is somewhere between $35,000 and $55,000. Looking throughout the entire school district of your working population, we're looking at an average income of the working individual around $46,000. Into the projected figures, we've also anticipated the loss of revenue that could be bestowed on the school district, and that of the people who are employed in the city of Philadelphia. There is a credit provision allowed for the people who are employed in the city of Philadelphia where they can use the tax paid to the city as an offset against their tax liability out here in the suburbs. We estimate that to be around 10% of your working population is employed in the city of Philadelphia. Excuse me. Our experience has been that in many areas, and even the proximity, which are even closer to the city of Philadelphia, that figure has been on a deep decline rather than an increase. Many of the employers have seeked to come out here into the suburbs. We estimate approximately 33,943 residents, or if you want to round that off, 34,000 working residents of your population of 84,864 is what is employed. And I understand there is a small section of the school district referred to as Lyon Lexington. We did not include any part of that in our study here. Just some general information on the earned income tax. The School districts are allowed to levy the earned income tax on residents of the school district only. Municipalities have the option to levy it on residents and non-residents. So basically, if the school district would decide to make an earned income tax levy, that tax would be levied on all residents working in the North Penn School District. Some of your population presently are working in areas where the tax is being levied by various municipalities, and they're paying that tax where they're working. And again, I mentioned that the municipalities have the authority to levy on non-residents. Any of your residents who would be presently paying the tax, once you would enact your own income tax, if you choose to do that, those monies would then come back to the North Penn School District and credit that person's name. Presently, anyone who's paying earned income tax in any municipality in the Commonwealth, you are losing those revenues. They are staying with that municipality. So it's not a duplicate taxation. It would be really shifting those tax dollars back to North Penn School District. And I have some statistical information later on in the report to give you an indication of the incomes or the taxes that are being paid by your residents in some of the areas that we collect for. Just real quick, the earned income tax is a tax on wages, salaries, commissions, excuse me, bonuses, incentive payments, fees, tips, and other types of compensation, including net profits from self-employed people. There are specific exemptions or exclusions to the earned income tax. We've listed some in the report, such as active military pay, periodic payments for sickness, disability retirement compensation, workman's compensation, occupational disease benefits, old age, retirement pay or pensions, public assistance, unemployment, supplemental unemployment benefits, strike benefits, Social Security, and retirement programs. So basically, any income that's being derived from any benefit-type packages would not be subject to an earned income tax or net profits tax. We've shown what we consider a cash flow analysis to give you an idea of if the tax is levied as of January 1, when you might expect your revenues and how that flows throughout the calendar school year there. Again, the tax is usually due on a quarterly basis. It's due 30 days after a close of a quarter. And so most of your withholdings or the residents that would be subject to paying that tax will wait till the end of that quarter and make payments. For the school district purposes, we start, which would really be a first quarter, July 1 in your eyes, but if you look at the calendar year, it's really our third quarter. And realizing that in the first school year, the maximum that you could be able to collect would be 3 quarters, because that fourth quarter would be due July 31 of the following year, even though those taxes might have been, or wages might have been earned in the prior, and that's where we talked a little bit about the accrual basis. I've given some earned income tax summary of the figures that I've offered as first year 1%, 0.5%, and a full year collection. And I've broken it down by municipality to give you an idea of where those estimate figures are coming from. On page 5 of our report, it takes it from the starting with the borough of Hatfield and goes down to the Upper Gwinnett Township. Again, for the school year 94-95, cash received between the period of July 1, 1994 to June 30th, 1995, we estimate the 7.8 to 7.9, and then the consideration if you would go on the accrual basis. We did the same thing for a full year collection. Again, that the tax would be still levied at 1% and you would not be affected by any sharing provision or any of the other municipalities would decide to levy the tax. And follow that same outline, those estimate figures of 14.3 to 14.7. And on page 7, then we've taken it down that given the projected revenue and estimates on the school year 95-96, assuming that all the municipalities within the school district would decide to make that levy and begin sharing in your 1% levy. And that's where the figures drop down again almost to little bit higher than the first year, but somewhere around 8.2 to 8.340. I've also looked at some of the surrounding school districts that presently levy an earned income tax, page 8, and what we've done is just looked at the last 3 years and come up with the average increase of the earned income tax. And one nice thing with the earned income tax is it has somewhat of an escalating value in there as long as people are working and your employment force increase, as well as the increase in wages, your earned income tax hopefully would continue to in the upscale. So what we've done there is just shown some examples of some of the surrounding districts. These are areas that we collect for and gave an average increase over the last 3 years of what they are. And taking those into consideration, you're looking at an average increase that we feel for the North Penn School District on a year-to-year basis was probably somewhere around 6%. And finally in the report, what we've done is we've looked into our tax files for the districts that we presently administer the earned income tax. And on page 9, what I've done is broken it down by municipality, by the number of employees, and the total collections of your residents or the who are presently working in areas that we administer the tax, who are presently paying an earned income tax, and that money is not coming back to the North Penn School District. And now that's only the areas we administer for. So there are some other areas out there where the taxes are levied, which we are not the administrator or the collector. So this figure basically would be, I would say, on the conservative side. But anyhow, if you look at just at the totals, the number of people that we have on our files that are working in other municipalities that presently levy the taxes, that of your working population, we estimate around 4,482 people. These were taken from the tax records of 1993. And for a total collection or taxes paid in other municipalities of $1,842,399. As you can see, there is a rather large portion of your population who are presently paying that tax. If the school district decides to make that levy, those monies would then begin to funnel back into the district. That's basically the overview of the analysis report. Do you have any questions?
Is there any questions?
Question?
Yeah.
Bill, if I could, before we question Ernie, I'd like to throw my 2 cents in here, because in addition to Ernie doing some work, I've done some work on this and some independent research, and I'd like to make a few comments before we come back and question, because I may have some of the answers that I've looked up. The last time Berkheimer was here, and I think Ernie was the person actually that was here, I was out in the audience watching this, and I think that there's some significant differences, and I think that as a result of those differences, this is something that we may want to consider for this year. Let's look at some of the differences from what I heard in 1991 to what I heard tonight and some of the research that I've done. First of all, in 1991, they were talking somewhere under $3.5 million as being the ongoing revenue generation capability of an earned income tax, because while the municipalities may or may not decide to implement an earned income tax to go with it, in fact, 1% is the maximum. And where it is in place today, typically the municipalities and the school district share 0.5%. The 0.5% that we're talking about here now generates, based on the projections that Berkheimer is giving, something in excess of $8 million. They only projected $3.5 million 3 years ago. Some of that is due to the rate of inflation, which, if you look at the report, it varies from 4.7 to 8-point-something% year to year. But the other side, I think, and this is my comment, not Ernie's, they had recently put in the tax at Central Bucks and got hurt, and they were very conservative in 1991 with the revenue numbers. Separately, looking at the revenue numbers from a different approach, how much income is generated when you look at the state numbers for the North Penn School District. And remember, when you file your return, you mark the North Penn School District. Those numbers are available out there. The revenue projections are very valid that Ernie is putting forward. One of the things, as I reviewed my data from 1991 as compared to now, I did not have any understanding of the fact that he's estimating 10% of the revenue is really being paid to Philadelphia, and we're not going to get it back. When I look at the North Wales and the Lansdale train stations, I see a lot of people getting on those expresses, and I thought that number was a lot higher. But indeed, when you look at actual results, and that's actual results from people like Solderton, who are outside of Philadelphia from us, and Horsham and some of those guys, Hatboroughs, who are closer to Philadelphia and also on a SEPTA main line, both of those kinds of entities are getting 9%. So 10% loss, which is incorporated in the numbers he's given us, is a very, very reasonable number. Overall, in fact, it's about 15.5% of all residents from Montgomery County end up going to Philadelphia, and that's the amount of money that we lose there. One of the biggest problems for this district with an earned income tax is that our tax base is 35% industrial commercial. When you look at an earned income tax, its primary advantage is it allows you to take the tax burden off of property taxes and onto an income, a wage-based tax, which is more equitable because it more reflects the people's ability to pay. The feeling, though, is the prime target for those folks are the senior citizens, and with 35% industrial commercial, that's an awful lot of tax break to the industrial commercial people. Has been and was my impression in 1991. North Penn, the other side of that coin is that when you give that much of a break to industrial commercial, the people that end up paying the earned income tax take an awful lot of burden. They have to share that burden. The people that are paying the earned income side have to share the burden for the tax break that the industry is getting in the area. In researching this data, I got another surprise. Dennis, the first piece up there, and when we're done, we'll point this more towards the audience so you can see what I'm talking about. What I have here is, I guess, based on what I heard, I'm very comfortable that the 10% estimate going to Philadelphia is a good one, but we know a lot of people move around. There is an economy in the North Penn area. People live here and they work here. They work at this school district. They work at Merck. They work at Leeds. They work at a lot of industries. But on the other hand, a lot of people are also mobile, and they move out of this area to go to work. 10% of them, on a revenue basis, go to Philadelphia. What I've got here is a map of Bucks and Montgomery County. And I've got highlighted out there a black line around our school district. And what I was trying to come up with was where are people likely to go? And I thought if I looked at Bucks and Montgomery County, I could get a good feel for where people are likely to travel to. We already know that 10% go to Philadelphia. And there are, when you look at Bucks and Montgomery County, there's a lot of big employers around who aren't in the North Penn area. Earnings numbers, it's $1.8 million, money that goes to other municipalities that Berkheimer services. There are two other major administrators of earned income tax, plus a lot of individuals or small people. So earnings numbers is more than just conservative. That's their numbers. There are two other big players and a lot of small players. The other thing that I didn't realize from 1991, though, was that when you do move out of this area to your employment, you're likely to get charged. I thought a lot more people went to Philadelphia and that money comes back, but Dennis, would you put up the other? I got some information and I plotted where it is that people, that municipalities who have the right to tax non-resident workers, which ones do and don't apply an earned income tax. And what you see there is, if I plot out the pink areas, if you will, are those municipalities that charge an earned income tax. So any of our citizens who go out to those municipalities are likely to be paying it there. Bottom line is, the little white spot you see in the center is the North Penn School District plus Lower Gwinnett Township that doesn't have one. And if you look at Bucks and Montgomery County, if you get away from the edge of Philadelphia, and not all of that because Cheltenham and Rockledge charge it, and get away from the two rivers, the Schuylkill and the Delaware, you're going to be paying an earned income tax. Universally, consistently, you're going to be paying an earned income tax. Some people charge different amounts. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's a half, sometimes it's different. So there's 3/4 in there, I think. But you're going to be paying an earned income tax. And that $1.8 million is conservative when I look at this number and know that there are a bunch of individuals and 2 other big players in collecting this tax, that an awful lot of people, most of the calls over the last month and a half that I've got have been from people telling me, I pay it down wherever it happens to be that they work, and why shouldn't it be benefiting my school district and my municipality? I was very surprised when I saw that map and realized how solid it is in people that charge the earned income tax already. I came to the conclusion that while there are a lot of people that live here and work at the school district, or live here or work at Merck, and live here or work at Montgomery Mall, who are now going to be hit with an earned income tax if we put it in, there are a much larger group of people who live here, work somewhere else, they're paying it already, and that money is now going to come back here and benefit them where they live, and they prefer that. That's the overwhelming number of calls that I've had on the issue. Remember, the colored areas are just municipalities because school districts can't tax somebody that happens to work there. The other side of the coin of, I was afraid of the burden on people, but I think that the burden for a lot of people is not going to be there because they're already paying it and the money could come back. And then I even looked at, what are we doing for the businesses? When I look at, and it's true, 35% of our tax base currently is business. But when I looked at that same map, I said, wait a minute, if I'm, and I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce off and on, when I look at it from the Chamber of Commerce, who's trying to get new people to move in, I would look at that map and say, if I was coming to move to this area, the person that doesn't have, the area that does not have an earned income tax in, is going to have a necessarily higher property tax rate. And it would be a disincentive for me to move a business to this area. Now, understand that's how it works in theory. In practice, okay, there are school districts around us who have an earned income tax of 1% and have a higher millage than we do. It has to do with several things. How efficiently we run this district. It has to do with the differing natures of the two tax bases. But in fact, it's true. You can be in another school district that has an earned income tax and still pay more. But it is an indicator that everybody around us is doing it, and the tax break to business is there, but it's also a disincentive to business moving in if we don't. The dynamics, I'm not quite done yet, but I'm close. I get more than 5 minutes because it's my assignment. The dynamics are that I believe that because of the effect on business and the effect on our citizens, I think it's worth considering. There are 2 areas that I still have great concern with. One is that the legislature is currently looking at tax reform, which could provide alternate means other than property taxes to tax. Quite frankly, the House has passed one version. The Senate is now working on a version. If you looked at the 2 of them, you wouldn't even know they were addressing the same issue. I personally don't think that they're going to produce something this year. However, I think it's something that we ought to monitor because we shouldn't go into this rashly if we're going to have a better means to offload property tax burden from citizens. Right now, this is the only way that we have. In that connection, though, there is no startup cost, because if we hire a vendor, Berkheimer or one of the other people, the initial cost of setting up files and everything is included in the normal fee that they pay, so that there is no startup cost should we do that. The biggest concern that I have, and the reason that I will make a recommendation for what we want to do, is there is a legitimate taxpayer concern, or there should be, that this is just another tax. It's a valid concern. You have another tax, somebody's going to use it. As a taxpayer, I have not yet met a good tax. On the other hand, some taxpayers are concerned about what school boards have done in the past, or what some school board may do in the future to reapply property taxes. I'll point out that over the last 3 years, our assessments, which is the basis of how our property taxes go up and down without raising mills, have been flat. The reason for that has been primarily assessment appeals. The other reason for that is, as the growth levels out, the amount of value of the property in our area doesn't grow. I'll point out that it's been very flat over the last 3 years. During that same period, it's been something more than 6% on average that the earned income tax has grown. When you talk about the earned income tax at the level that we're talking about it here, you're talking about something over 9% of our budget, something over 11% of our local tax burden that we could shift to a non-property tax basis. I don't think we can address what somebody might say somebody did in the past, or what somebody said, what somebody might do in the future. But what we can do is address what we do currently. And I think that it would be wise for us to not do anything until we've gone through our budget process. In practical terms, we can implement a tax, an earned income tax, effective July 1, if we start the legal process, and the first step is to make a notification publicly and advertised that we intend to do it. I would suggest that we don't even consider making that start until we've passed our preliminary budget. If we've passed our preliminary budget, and if we can give a real substantial tax decrease, then I would be inclined to consider it. Again, the other piece being what Harrisburg is doing. But I would not even consider starting the process until we've seen and we can demonstrate factually what we could do for a property tax decrease. The logistics of it are that if we start the process in mid-May, we could have a tax in place and impact this year's budget. I would ask that, as a part of that recommendation, though, I would ask that the administration have in mind, and we have in mind, as we go through the budget process, what it would mean with or without an earned income tax. That's the end of mine. Now, I'd like to open it up to board questions for either me or Ernie.
Nice report, Ralph. Thank you. I just have a question, so that maybe to clarify something. If we levy a 1% tax, then it's incumbent on the districts or the municipalities, if they would like to get half of that, they can then enact their legislation or whatever they do to basically get half. If we enact a 0.5% tax, then it's incumbent upon them to do it whether they would have done it, whether we would have done it or not. Is that correct? Is that basically the answer? The difference of those two being that if Upper Gwinnett or Tomenson wouldn't choose to implement the other half, then we would get the whole 1%.
Right, you would realize the full 1% until such time. That's correct, until they do that.
And
Wishful thinking.
for example, if I paid a 0.5% in Whitpain, then I would pay the other 0.5% to North Penn, and the half from Whitpain would come back for those people that pay those kind of taxes. correct?
If,
No, it'd be a
A
new
half would
tax.
come
if
back,
if the school district enacted 1.5%?
or 1% or whatever.
Okay, if the school district, if you were employed in Whitpain, the school district enacted 1.5%, then your money would then funnel back here to Whitpain at 1.5%. If the district levied a 1%, then that 0.5% would come back and you would have to pay the additional half out of your pocket.
That was my question, so that people understand that, because a lot of people out there are paying 1%. And so that if we enact anything less than that, some of that money would still stay with the district, vice versa, if they're, they may have to pay more if they're only paying 0.5% right now. That was the point of my question. Bill, you had some questions?
Yes, I do. I want to ask where you get some of your information. Your average district salary, well, we'll start with that one.
Okay, what we do
in
is
general, where do you get your data?
Well, from various sources, including our own records, but there's information out there both by the Planning Commission, state, and census information. When you look at, just for instance, we take in consideration per capita incomes, in which is basically every individual is assessed or a certain amount of income, whether they're a child or someone's 99 years old. So we take that information and calculate that into what the wealth, as we would consider, of the per capita income based on the total population by municipality. For instance, if the township of Hatfield, maybe their per capita income is $18,000, times the total population calculates into that much earnings or wealth in that district. And then we take into consideration other factors as far as median household income, as well as the average sale of homes within the areas, and the rule of thumb as far as the purchasing power and so on and so forth.
I'm looking at your average salary here on page 2 of your report, and I'm seeing a range of $35,000 to $55,000, correct?
Yes.
I consider that quite a range. If you use numbers on the high side versus the low side, there's quite a difference in the expected income.
Sure.
I just think if you're getting good statistical information, you should be able to get it down to a real good average.
Well, the
Closer.
reason, yeah, I understand. The reason that the range is given there is because depending on the municipality, you could have a borough, for instance, of say North Wales or Hatfield Borough, not have the same wealth as possibly Talminson or.
I understand. I guess what I'm saying is I don't really care the comparisons between Hatfield, Talminson, and Montgomery. I want to know the school district.
Well, that
This is the school.
is the school district. That's
But
just
35 to 55.
Well, but Bill, that's what part of the, that could be 70% of the bell curve, it could be 80%, it could be 40%, I don't know, and that's what you haven't defined here. If you define that, you can say that, the range is something around the mean.
If they said 25 to 30, I could live with that. But
Read the
35
next sentence,
to
Bill.
55.
Read the next sentence.
The next sentence has that, Bill.
46 per working individual.
Which is approximately, but that's just averaging the range.
Okay.
Well, the average better be in the range.
Yeah. You are a
It is.
statistician.
Or we're gonna have some problems.
And Bill, I think that the numbers that he's saying, if you take a completely different approach and take a look at the kind of money that goes in North Penn School District and start taking percentages, you come up with you're in the same number range. And I had a level of comfort as a result of that.
I guess when I see some other numbers here, I wonder, if I go to page 9, I see Lansdale Borough jumping out. I guess it just seems like a big difference in the rest of the numbers.
Bill, these are just the people in the townships where they
collect
collect
money
the
from.
tax now. They pulled these figures from their current records. They say they don't do, say, Hatboro, Worsham, and I don't think or anywhere else don't you do locally, Whitpain?
Well, Whitpain, you look at the Norristown area, the Upper Dublins,
These are people that we went into North Penn School District residents, and in this case, if you just looked at, you brought up Lansdale Borough. In Lansdale Borough, okay, of their working population, in our records, there are approximately 1,965 people who are presently paying and earn income tax in another township.
In other municipalities.
In other municipalities.
It says that 90%.
Do they have that many more people than Montgomery?
No,
and
it just
Talladega?
says that 90% of the people in Lansdale Borough do not work within the borough. They work outside the borough.
Within the district?
Because they're, no, or
They work-
within the borough, so that's why they're outside.
Those are people that that don't work in the borough and happen to work in a municipality that they collect tax for. And they collect tax for Hatfield Borough, by the way.
Not destroyed.
That-
You're on a
Yeah,
different
if you
page.
just-
Montgomery Township might
I'm on
all
page
work in
nine.
Whitpain, in which they
You're on
won't be
page 9,
included in.
right? On page 9, it says Lansdale Borough, 1,965.
People pay the tax at some other municipality.
Correct.
That they happen to collect for.
That we
That
know
collects.
That they know about.
It just seems, maybe it's a statistical quirk.
It is, because
is.
I pay in Whitpain, I live in Upper Gwinnett, so I'm not part of
You're
the
not even part of this.
248 people that you've shown there. See, I pay the tax in Whitpain because I work there, but I don't come in here because they don't collect Whitpain's tax. So if they put Whitpain in there, then I'd be part of that number, but I'm not.
Okay.
And the fact.
But I'm part of the
It's a quirk of statistics, that's why it's heavily weighted to Lansdale Borough.
My husband works in Fort Washington, and I think you collect for them, that whole group or whatever.
Upper Dublin.
Upper Dublin.
Upper Dublin and all that, so I'm part of the 1965. So it's just a matter that most of the people in Lansdale Borough happen to work in places that do collect, that Berkheimer associates
They work in areas that we-
have that stuff. There isn't that much industry within the borough itself, and that's
Well,
why.
let me ask you this. If we look at Upper Gwinnett, 248 employees. Are you with me? That's the number of employees that work in a municipality that currently collects, has a 1% tax collected by you?
That's
Right.
That's right.
That's number of residents from Upper Gwinnett Township that are working in areas that we administer and they are presently paying a tax.
Not necessarily
And
1%.
there are
Not
one of three
necessarily.
large collectors,
I
plus there's
understand this.
independents.
It just seems very strange that based on the population of the two, that the number of people
It
in
just depends
Lansdale
on where the
That-
workforce
that
is
is
tremendously
going.
high number here. And I'm
You do
just wondering,
salaries, do
that's
you
why I'm
not?
questioning where you get some of your information.
Yes,
If
yes.
you would just, on page 8,
Because people in the borough may
on
want-
page 8 of the report where I've listed those school districts just in the
There's no
area that
jobs
we
in
collect
Lansdale.
for. So,
Okay. Do you have a statistical range of error on this thing?
Margin of error.
Margin of error?
on the number of employees and that's actual
That's
records.
actual facts.
That's
Okay.
actual records.
Now, you'll get a standard deviation on the mean and the range based on the statistics on the average income. There's some standard deviation associated with that.
On page 8, with all these other school districts, do you know if you can attribute the growth in the tax due to population growth or wage increases?
I think it's a combination of both.
It's not something that you track, though?
Bill, can I add? I talked to people in 3 of these districts, Souderton, Penridge, Perk Valley. And percentages really don't tell a story unless you know the base of what you're taking it up. And in those districts, such as Penridge, you see a 6.9% increase, but basically that's a range of $100,000 to $150,000 increase in their earned income tax because the earned income, they're a bedroom community, they're a smaller community, they're more rural. They're not as big as we are. They're not collecting $14 million to begin with. They are talking about.
They also don't have 85,000 residents.
Right.
So
Their earned income tax is actually 1.4 or 5. I don't have the exact numbers with me, but the percentage is going to be greater when your numbers are smaller to begin with, and
It's still a comparison of percentages, not an increase in the revenue.
no, they. 1.5 million is about
Oh, I thought you meant
what
percent.
is what the earned income tax generates.
Oh.
And it increased about to $150,000 over those past couple of years.
But we'd still see the same amount of increase. We'd see the
Not
same
necessarily.
percentage of increase, which is what we're saying.
Percentages can go down as
They
your.
can level off, they can do whatever, you know, but statistically, the percentage for these school districts has been pretty much in the area of where we are, and that's why. And we should see somewhere in a mean average of these percentages, and that's what our percentage increases should be.
I was just hoping.
In the next
And I
year.
think- I think one of the key things is that while the assessment increase has been flat as a result of assessment appeals, in our case primarily, the earned income hasn't. Even, the last 3 years have not been banner years economically, and yet through a combination of growth and growth in number of people and growth in income of the people that are there, these school districts have had a percentage increase from 4.7 to 7.8. And I think that what he was saying is that a conservative number would estimate a 6% year-to-year increase in the earned income tax revenue. And that's a piece that over the last 3 years, given the economic conditions and the reality here, we have not enjoyed in assessment increases.
I'm not done. Is this tax a federal tax deduction?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me how it's collected?
Employers within the school district would be required by, if you adopt your resolution, to withhold the tax from their employees of North Penn School District. So it's through a payroll deduction for any employees within the district. Anyone who is employed, as we spoke before, outside the district, that's happening now, where they're working in an area that has a 1% tax or whatever, those monies would start coming back. If a resident works in an area that does not have the tax, or they're self-employed, it works the same way as sort of the federal and the state. You're required to do an estimated calculation of what your income would be for that year and pay your tax on 4 quarterly equal installments. At the end of each year, you file a final return, which would basically summarizing your taxes or your income for the past year, taxes paid or withheld, and then paying any balance due or credit or refund.
So it's another tax burden, or
Administration.
more work for the employer,
Yes.
not the employee.
Yeah, we've been.
Both.
Everyone has to
Both.
file, even
Okay.
if they don't
And-
pay.
If the employer
and
doesn't,
where does the money get sent?
The money would get sent to your collector or whoever the board would decide to be there.
That's
Lockbox.
that's where you come in.
If
All the
we're-
money comes to you, and you send us what's left when you're done. right?
Your tax administrator, whether it be Berkheimer or an individual of the township or if the school district decides to collect it themselves, those people are responsible for administering the tax under Pennsylvania Act 511, as far as when it's due, how it's distributed, where it's reciprocated to, and the filing requirements or whatever.
And enforcement?
Enforcement.
Whose job is it to find out all the residents of the school district and make sure they're paying their bill?
Well, your administrator would be is the one who's responsible for enforcement. The issue of to find the people who would be subject to the tax and whatever, it's a two-way street. We do everything we can to maintain the tax files for our clients. We exchange information. We use various sources as well as participation from the client as far as any records that might be available, property transfers, things of that sort.
And how much does a typical administrator get paid for doing this?
Well, it varies on the agreements or whoever you would speak with. Our contract or our fees are commissioned based on the amount of monies that we disperse to our clients. We don't do any deduction from those taxes. We bill our clients separately, and the range is anywhere from 2.5% to 3%, depending on the contracting agreement we enter into.
Of the collected amount?
Of what is dispersed to the client, in this case, North Penn School District.
Okay. Done, thank you. Any other board questions?
Some clarification.
Oh, Vicki, I'm sorry. Did you say
Sure.
yes?
So, do we have a median income figure here instead of averages? Dennis, do we have that from the economic data that you get from the county?
Not that I've
What the
seen,
median income would be rather than an average?
not that I've seen, but I can call the planning commission.
Okay, can we consider average income the same as earned income, since there's all these disqualifications? When you list what an average income is, but yet
That would be
what counts as income isn't necessarily earned income.
That would be for earned income tax purposes.
Okay.
So that average in there would be for
So that
either-
we can count that.
Right.
And then you had 33,943 residents make up the workforce. Is that both part-time and full-time? You're
Yes.
just counting anyone that's out there working, whether it's 2 hours a week or whether it's a full week? Okay.
Statistically, your working population is normally around 40% of your total population.
But without any qualifications of how much they might be working or how much income they might be generating. Okay.
So your figure is a statistical figure of 40% of the population.
And they're out there working whatever hours, okay. The next on this, Bill asked that question, so we'll pass right by it. Give me a break. On, back to page 9, where it is showing these, one thing that Dick brought out that I thought was very important, because there was a message being sent sort of that anyone who's already paying an earned income tax out there in other school districts, I guess whether it's Central Bucks or what others, would automatically, they wouldn't necessarily have a new tax burden. But that's not the case, because if these municipalities are charging 0.5% and that's all they're paying, they could possibly see their tax bill double as it stood when the North Penn School District implemented its tax. Is that correct?
If you decide to levy a full 1%, they would see an additional 0.5% levy. But right now, for instance, in Mr. Bowman's situation, he's paying 0.5% where he works.
Right.
That's staying in that municipality.
Right.
If North Penn decides to levy only 0.5%, then he would see no additional tax. Those monies would funnel back here to the school district.
There wouldn't still be a total of a 1%
No.
because of them keeping
No,
their
only
half?
unless you decide to
Okay.
enact a 1%.
But if we enact a 1, then, okay.
Then he would pay additional half.
And reversely, if you're paying a 1%, for instance, my husband's paying 1% in Upper Dublin, if we decide to pay only 0.5%, or charge a 0.5%, then only that 0.5% would come here, and the other 0.5% would stay at Upper Dublin.
Right. But I just want, of these numbers, do you have the data possible to say whether these are 0.5% or 1% tax payments, since you used your own records? In other words, of 248 employees in Upper Gwinnett, you would have had within those same records the capability of saying whether they were currently paying at a 0.5% or 1%.
Right. Basically, in this area, you're looking at Hatfield Borough has a 0.5% levy that we administer. And, you might have some people, most of the areas levy a full 1%. Over in the Chester County area, there's a township over there that levies at 0.75%, which is Willistown Township.
Mm-hmm.
We have that information available, but I'd have to say that 98%, if not higher, of these figures would be all at a full 1%, just based on your surrounding proximity.
Do you do Central Bucks? Is there any particular reason, since Central Bucks is more demographically aligned with North Penn as far as size and commercial, industrial, in residential mix, why it wouldn't have been possible to have given us something beyond these school districts, which, such as Perk Valley they told me they have a 25% senior citizen, they have a 2% commercial industrial base over there. At least that's what I had from a board member. He also gave me, of course, the data on his millage increases and somewhat. But when I asked the board members that I spoke with from Souderton, Penridge, and Perk Valley, basically a lot of them are really surprised, because you're comparing apples to oranges when you start talking about a community such as Perk Valley or Penridge up against our heavier commercial and industrial base. They had 2%, they said, at Perk Valley. Commercial and industrial to residential. And I'm just saying that of those, I saw there's Colonial, Abington, or Central Bucks now. I don't think Colonial or Abington,
doesn't have
they
it.
don't
Abington
have
have
earned
it.
income taxes.
I think the
But
point
Central
here
Bucks would
is,
be good.
regardless of the percentage increase per year, the only point that's being made is an illustration that the tax continues to grow. You know, whether it's 4% a year, or 2%, or 6% a year, the only way you're going to know for sure is if it's levied, and then you collect historical data, obviously, for our area. All this is projection. You can debate whether it's going to be 1, 3, or 5%, or 9% tonight. It's the additional funds of growth that are going to occur.
Well, the additional
That all
growth.
have
Yeah.
they have the impact of reducing property taxes.
But Dick, what I'm trying to get back to, though, is that it is important to me who we're helping with this. And yes, that chart was used for that, but when we go comparing, and Ralph will say it's 35% of our total assessments, that's correct. However, if you take industrial and commercial and check it against residential, and forget about all the other little lots and agricultural land, residential is where the senior citizens are located. Industrial and commercial, according to the last bond statement records we got, actually amounts to a little over 50%, 52% of residential. What I'd like to see as we move forward and do this, and we compare industrial and commercial to residential rather than into this big pie which has some tax exempt lands and properties in there, is that we do something, if Dennis could do it, I don't want to take your time, but shows us where is our earned income tax dollar really going to hit home at? What percentage is really going to be there to a resident taxpayer as opposed to a commercial and industrial-based taxpayer in the millage relief? In other words, the average home assessment in our last records was $7,300. What would 1 mil equate to, Dennis? A 1 mil savings?
Just $8.
Okay, $8. Whereas Merck, it would amount to about $9,700. The
But what you have to
taxpayers, the
look at
wage
too,
earners are
Mrs. Scher, is
paying
this, and I hope to get some further information to you about the number of assessment appeals on commercial property still out there.
Mhm.
While on our last bond statement, it was, we are at
January
about 35%. We have an awful lot of appeals out there that are big money, and I think you're gonna see that even drop even further.
Well,
I mean, there's a lot of.
52,
that's
it
out
may
there.
drop, but so is residential, though. We're getting hit in all segments as it goes
But
through.
not, a $1,000 hit on a residence is
No.
nothing like 100,000 on a commercial.
But then what our makeup is of senior citizens or fixed income residents, because, I think of some people out there that they make a wage, their total income may be $40,000, their home assessment may be $8,000, and they're going to end up picking up a pretty large tab on an exchange like that.
Are you talking about senior citizens?
No, Terry with 5 children there.
If you look at it this way, though, if you look at it this way, if we collect on an ongoing basis around 8 million and then start inflating it at 6%, if we collect in the first year where we get a half, and I think that's a reasonable assumption for financial planning that we should do if we would implement it, that $8 million, assumedly 35% of that, because that's going to be millage that we don't have to, that we cut or don't have to raise, some combination. 35% of that $8 million is going to save Merck and other commercial industrial establishments money. 35% of $8 million. The 65% is going to be paid by wage earners, which are predominantly not your senior citizens. It is wage earners. And I think that this $1.8 million number on earnings, and Dennis, if you could put that map back up, I think that what the point is, even though we do have an economy and it is going to affect us here, the fact is that that's only a portion of the people that are already paying the 65% of 8 million. And a lot of that, a lot more than the 1.8 million, is simply going to come back from another municipality to the home municipality. And the point is that the cost to taxpayers would be less at the 1/2, a lot less than the 8 million, because of the fact that these people are paying it elsewhere. And remember, on top of that, those people that work in Philadelphia, this doesn't have any, we don't get any money, they don't pay any more money, it has no effect. And that's 10% of our folks. And I'm suggesting that it's a lot more than 1.8. I don't know the number, but that's why that map went up there. You drive a long way. You drive to one of the rivers or just to the edge of Philadelphia, or you pay. So the people that drive out of this area, unless they go to Philadelphia, that's 10%, or right to the edge, and it's down, the industrial parks are on the two rivers and the edge of Philadelphia. Everybody else is charging them an earned income tax. So a lot more than the 1.8, and that's only Ernie's. There's two other major players, plus a lot of individuals that collect these earned income taxes. The impact isn't going to be $8 million cost to the taxpayers.
Ralph,
The
yes,
impact to the
perhaps,
taxpayers may be about $300 and some dollars.
if they're not already paying.
I'm not already paying.
Those people that get hurt are the ones that live here and work here. And there is an economy here, Merck, Sharp and Dome, Leeds and Northrop, a whole bunch of companies that hire North Penn School District. A lot of our teachers live here. They'll all start paying.
And you'll have to collect, and it doesn't cost you that much to collect.
In order to move this on, do you have a recommendation or proposal for that we'll talk about on Thursday, or that we'll vote for on Thursday? Or are you?
I'm suggesting that we do nothing until we get close to the, approving a preliminary budget, at which time we might consider implementing this if it made sense.
Can I add just one thing? You talked about Harrisburg, and I called today to see what's happening there. What happened is the Senate stripped the tax reform bill. What their proposal is that we keep our 1% earned income tax, and we give the school districts the ability to collect another 1% earned income tax. Wait a minute. Of that extra 1% earned income tax, you would keep the total of that 1%. The original 1% you would split with the municipalities. The other 1% you would keep. However, for every dollar that you earned in that 1% earned income, you would have to decrease the taxes on property taxes by that dollar. So it's a dollar per dollar combination. A statement I have always said, and it's publicly, and I've said it several times, that it is absurd that we are still taxing the land and that people are paying for school districts by taxing the land. I'm all for an earned income tax. I really like the House bill, which had a personal income tax, because that covered all gambits. The one thing that this does is it certainly allows us to lower the cost to senior citizens. That is something that all of us have said that we were interested in. That is something that I think we should be addressing substantially. The other point of this that Ralph, and very well Ralph recommended, is that a lot of school districts see this as a pot of gold and start taxing above and beyond whatever you're getting. If we look at it that way, then we're defeating the purpose of this earned income tax. This has got to be a total reduction of property taxes in order for us to justify it, or at least for myself to justify it. It has to be that we're going to take, what are we, 265 as a mill? So about 31 mills, and we are going to reduce our budget to make sure that we don't just tack this on and say, oh, well, we've got this money and we're not going to reduce the property taxes. I would never vote for anything of that nature. Ralph's recommendation that we look at the budget first, see what the millage increase is, work on that budget to get it down to, hopefully, no millage increases, and then take our earned income tax or whatever happens with the state is an excellent idea, and I think that's what we should go forward with.
A comment, the current mill's 280,000.
280, I'm sorry.
Ralph, did I understand that you said this could be enacted within a month's time?
Yes.
Well, it's a month and a half. There are some technical requirements in advertising, and then pass it a month before it would go into effect.
Would you agree
We could do that
you
starting May 12th.
You could start, or an agency like yours could start collecting a tax like this with a month and a half or
even less notice?
No, there's 3
They
months.
only get 3.
It's a quarter.
There's 3 months and a quarter, and then you collect the month after the first quarter. So we wouldn't
It's-
actually collect the whole.
It's not due for,
September
yeah.
30th.
Your first
Can I
quarter would be
suggest
due until
since-
October 31st, actually.
But the employers have to know to start
As of
collecting.
July 1.
That's why we pass it 30 days before, and then we notify them, yes.
Since we're not going to be taking a vote at the next board meeting.
That's
can
not
I-
my recommendation.
Dennis, I think it would be beneficial for everyone to have the 1991 Earned Income Tax Report, the Act 511 tax analysis that Berkheimer did back then. I pulled mine out. In here, there's about 18 pages of the rules and regulations regarding the collection of the earned income tax. You'll find that it does have a great deal of administrative
It's not that much.
How about if we take only those pages that relate to the earned income tax? I believe, Mrs. Scher, the 91 report talks about all 511 taxes, and many of those are illegal
Oh,
now.
these are the two, no, I'm sorry, these are. This from here to here is just
Okay.
the earned income tax, okay?
But what I'm saying is, we would
It was
give
18
you the earned
pages
income tax because.
For the earned income tax, and that way everyone knows what they're passing on, and it also has a clear definition of what's exempt and what burden will be on each employer, because I was reading some of that and I would have some questions. We're gonna need some education out there in some of those areas too.
Any other questions from the board for Ernie or myself? Are there any questions from the audience? Ernie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Santee. Jim, could you come up and to the microphone?
Thanks. I'm not going to take a lot of time. I was talking to Ralph, and earned income tax is something that I proposed to Upper Gwinnett Township about 6 years ago. My name is Jim Santee. I'm the president of the board of Upper Gwinnett Township, and I heard that this was going to be discussed tonight. So I came to here because I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I'm trying to understand what the benefits and what the downsides are. And one of the comments, Ernie, that you made was that I believe it was in Dick's question, was that if they levied a half percent earned income as a municipality, can we levy a 1/4% and split that half, or is that on top of the half?
The maximum is 1%.
Right.
So if the school district levied 1/2% and the municipality decided to levy a 1/4%, it would be now 3/4 of 1%. So we
Okay.
would just opted to not go to your max.
Okay, now on your exclusions and what gets, and what in fact gets taxed, one thing that's not here are stocks or stock options. Are they taxed?
No.
Stocks, bonds, dividends, things of that sort are not taxable. Remember, it's an earned income tax.
Right.
And it's just on wages, salaries, and benefits.
Okay.
The stocks, bonds, dividends would be under more than PIT tax.
Also, dwellings.
The other thing, several times during the presentations, you referenced the fact that the board, if they levy a tax for the 94, 95, is that correct? 94, 95, the municipalities would not be able to share. Is there anything to preclude us? If I'm sitting there as a municipality and I know they're going to levy a 1%, is there anything to stop me from levying a 0.5% as a municipality for the same time frame?
There are certain requirements, legal requirements that political subdivisions, both municipalities and school districts, must give each other notice prior to certain dates, like last day of adoption of the budget. So, for instance, 45 days prior to adoption of the budget, one or the other would have to give their intent that they want to share the tax. Once the budget is adopted or that time frame passes, you or a municipality in reverse for the school district could not touch that period of time until you go through that procedure of notification.
So that if they levy it after you pass your budget, which is what Ralph was suggesting, that automatically excludes us from participating in that 1% until their next budget year.
To yours.
Okay, you would have to go through your procedures, your notification, advertising the ordinance, passage of the ordinance, 30 days. Period there, but you would not be able to share it until their school would be up.
If your budget was in January,
That's if it's a 1%.
That has nothing to do with our budget, though.
That's if it's a 1% levy.
Right.
Let me ask you, what if all these municipalities were to levy it first? Would we be in that position then?
You would have to then work in reverse. You would have to give them notification and begin the sharing process.
North Wales has a 1% earned income tax, and we would get no revenue from North Wales at all until their budget year is finished.
But I think that's an
Yes.
important thing too, Ralph, because if we take half from North Wales, they're gonna turn around and whoever's a North Wales resident is going to have to compensate for the half that we've just taken. So if we look at ourselves as one community here,
That's
those
clearly the
residents
community
where they
that
are
gets hurt.
paying it better watch, they'll now be paying three halves in one way or another. It may
No.
not be there in an earned income tax, but they're gonna have to.
Yeah, but they got a decrease in taxes
They're
when they
going
got
to
their
have to-
1%.
They're gonna have to fill the void in their budget in North Wales, is what I'm saying,
Go back up.
one way or another.
From the municipality,
realize the bonanza.
but their tax
They do.
in the school district will go down.
That's all.
Any other, Jim?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, Dick.
Any other members of the audience? You had another question, Terry?
If we as a district switch and charge earned income tax instead of property tax, can we then, the next year, if all the other communities do it and we lose that extra half, which we should expect anyway, but then when we need to increase again, can we go back to increasing property taxes?
Yeah.
That's the problem, Terry. That's what happens very quickly.
The good news, though, is if you have an earned income tax, it tends to go up 6% a year, which hasn't been the case with our other tax base lately.
Now realize that depending upon what happens in Harrisburg, that may offset it. Because if the personal income tax, if the House gets part of theirs, which is the personal income tax, then you've got a dollar for dollar, and you also have resolutions that are going along with that. So there's some really strange law that may be enacted along the way. But the whole point of the state tax reform, hopefully, is to alleviate.
Texas is currently under court order to do the same thing for finance reform.
Presently, what will the state of Michigan's biggest tax base be? Just the
It'll be the sales tax. And then they will then provide a certain amount per student to every district, not dependent on wealth. I think every district's gonna get $4,300 per student, no matter where you are, whether you be Philadelphia or North Penn. So that's, we're all looking at that as possibly a wave of the future, so.
Well, thank you very much, Ernest, for coming tonight and sharing. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks again. Okay, let's move on to the bond fund status. Kelly.
Yes, I sent the board a report covering our current expendable funds, which were the 88, 90, and 92 bond issues. In this report, I tried to show in column 1 and 2 actual expenditures to date. The third column, anticipated expenditures, are those items or projects that are currently budgeted, and those figures can tend to change depending on budget or bids as they come due. You can see at the moment we have an unreserved balance of $2.9 million. That's after we would reimburse the current bond funds for the $7.3 million that was expended for the Hall Farm property. As you go through, you'll see we broke it down into new schools, the elementary schools, secondary schools, and other projects. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or
What constitutes
other. If you look on page, where are we? If you look on page 5, Terry, Mrs. Casca, you will see what the other involved.
What is the secondary expansion study?
Secondary expansion study were the expenses when they did various sites, going around to see various sites, and also looking at our current, at the junior high school in Pembroke and Penfield, and seeing the capabilities of expanding their size.
Are these?
A lot of those expenses, say, went to a Dick Warmkessel, who was trying to do architectural studies and engineering studies on what we could do with those buildings.
Those are expensive properties.
Dennis, we list the Hall Farm expenses at $7.3 million. What's included in there other than buying the land?
Besides buying the land, there's been some, I think, wetland studies done there.
There's a payment for some utilities, if you recall. After we went to sell it, we paid for the utilities as we brought down in front of the property.
Right, that was $602,000 right there.
Okay, great, thank you. I knew there was something else that it do, because that wasn't the hall itself. Thank you, Art. As I've talked to Dennis, I think eventually we're going to have the folks from Rosen Simon and Public Financial Management come down and give us a complete look at what indebtedness the district has, what are all the bond issues outstanding, which ones have been refinanced through which ones look like potential, or maybe the next ones that we want to refinance when the market is correct or when it changes. Because April and May look like pretty tight months in terms of budget and a lot of items on the agenda. I'd propose that we possibly look at that in June and have an informational briefing from those folks on where we stand and what the total indebtedness is, where we are, based on what we can borrow, what under the new acts proposed might limit our borrowing, because there's some in legislature to do that, right, Carmen?
Yes, there is.
So I'd propose that that's meets the approval of the rest of the board, that we put that off until June and talk to Dick Woods and.
Are you saying, Mr. Roman, at the June committee meeting, you would like that?
Yeah, either the committee meeting or the action meeting, it doesn't matter, depending on which we have the most time to do it.
We'll set that up.
Any other questions on the bond fund from the board?
Just a quick, Dennis, if I showed up at your office, could I look at a more detailed anticipated expenditure?
Certainly.
Okay.
Any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
My name is John Sheets. I'm a resident of Lansdale. I'm also a member of the North Penn Taxpayers Association on the board there. First, I would like to say one thing in regard to one part about the bonds, and the other, I'd like to say a thanks to Mr. Wood and Dr. Alan Alco for helping us out in the disaster that we had this year with the snow and ice. I'm with the North Penn Disaster Action Team, and I get out a lot of calls. And we needed a shelter right away for, we thought, a couple thousand people. They were right on the job. They helped us out immensely. He stopped on a Sunday and through all that snow and all, and made sure that we had everything we needed.
We just came in to get a warm cup of
You
coffee.
got a good cup of coffee.
And we didn't want to shovel our own driveways.
But I had to mention that. It's long overdue, and I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I wanted you to know that. The other reason I'm interested in is bonds issues. It has in here a future bond issue. I hope that in the future the board reviews these bond issues in regards to the debt service payments that are made, mainly to the solicitor. I don't mind a solicitor making a few bucks, but I think the amount of money that's being paid out for that is too much money being paid out to the solicitors. I was to a board meeting about 4 years ago, and I think it contained some of the bonds that are in here. I asked a question. There was 3 distinct bonds that were going to be that night: a $5 million bond, a $15 million bond, and a $25 million bond. Nowhere under the book did I see the fee for the solicitor. So I asked the question, and the fee was $63,000 for the $5 million bond issue. Now, if it's a percentage he's getting, or they're making that kind of money, I think that the individual, the board, should look into the possibility of having someone put it out for bids, because that really counts for a lot of money. And I don't know how that works and how much they recessed at that time. And I never did find out what the other 2 bonds are.
John, in the last few bond issues, we'll state that there has been a sheet attached to every one of them that lists how much everybody's getting. And what was really interesting is while the county was doing their bidding on their bond work, they had a bond half the size and they were paying more than we paid on our last one. So while we haven't put that out to bid, we do have a financial team that we respect, and we've been watching how much the bid numbers are versus what we're paying. That's not cheap, but we do watch that.
I understand. My main concern was that usually they're either on a contingency basis or they get paid by the hour. I don't mind if a solicitor averages about $125 an hour, or if you want to make $200. But when it comes down to the bond issues, it halts there. Now all of a sudden we're going on a percentage basis of the bonds. And I think if the taxpayers in this county, in the state of Pennsylvania, realize that every entity that does this is millions and millions of dollars is going out. And it's always based under a debt service, which is very broad, and you can't find it in there. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions?
I just want to, Dick, we are going to bring in the bond counsel, because I think
Yes.
most of my questions would go beyond what's here. It's that starting balance of when we borrowed it, because you hopscotch around with these things, and I don't know how far we go back. And if we're willing to do that, then
Well, this was just, get the topic open.
My request,
Get
yeah.
some of the latest information as to the total indebtedness of the school district. We'll look at that. And as I said, we had originally planned for this month to be the Glenn Willier, Dick Wood show for the board, but unfortunately, we just had too many things to do. As you can see, we spent 2 hours and 15 minutes on the first 4 items. So, the whole idea is that we do it where we can spend time and get a good presentation and can understand the entire situation. So we'll plan to do that now in June and have that on the agenda. Okay, we'll move on to the Lansdale Square purchase from trade with Art Wood.
Yes, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Chuck Dager and Mr. Ed McCarron of Dager & Dager Realtors. And Mrs. Tatum is sharing with the audience the plot plans that I prepared, and we had printed with the color, which will help as we go through the presentation this evening regarding an exchange of lots in Lansdale Square. Better known as the plain sites, better known as our movie lots.
2 years we've been in this.
We're going to set this up that we're going to do both at once. Kelly and I would like to comment.
We have copies.
Yeah, we have copies, so we can,
Yeah,
can everyone bring
you have
theirs?
plot plans.
Mine's here somewhere.
This is the same thing on
Why don't you show that to the audience is getting plans too, so that's okay. Just keep it where it is so the camera can see it. Yeah.
You want to buy a couple? Sorry.
Everybody get one? Okay, Chuck.
I'll give them right up to me. Did you walk it or? These are all paper streets, though. If I know that better than I did, somebody at the time, I'm like, well, how can we build anything with all these streets? It's from 91. It's from 91.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Chuck. Go ahead.
In your agenda, I believe the audience has copies of the memo that describes some of the historical background of movie lots. I won't take a lot of time on that, so I think you have read. Lansdale Square is in Hatfield Township.
Chuck, do you want to hold that microphone, please, for the television audience?
Okay. Actually, if you just sit it down maybe on the chair, it'll pick it up as long as you're kind of speaking toward it.
How about that?
Much better, thank you.
That?
Lansdale Square is at an area behind the properties on Welsh Road, Route 63, and Orvilla Road. This large plan is Welsh Road, far end Orvilla Road. At the corner of those intersections is the Plains Mennonite Church, and at the very corner is the cemetery of that church. There's a large open area behind that church and behind residential properties on Welsh Road and Orvilla Road. All of that area takes part of a subdivision that was referred to back in and recorded back in the 1920s, known as Lansdale Square. And the area that is shown on the handout that you have of properties prior to the exchange agreement that we're going to be talking about tonight. The first one shows, and this is shown at the bottom here, North Penn School District holdings prior to proposed exchange. It's the top one without any other color than blue. It shows all of the area in blue is presently owned by the North Penn School District and has been acquired over the last 30 years, mainly by the acquisition of property at tax sale. People who became disillusioned with their ownership and decided to just let it go and not pay any further taxes, which ultimately, through these system, resulted in it being put up through the courts for sale. And prior boards of the school district felt that there was some value, and I think were quite wise in doing so, in acquiring these as they became available. And in so doing, acquired a large amount of lots and started to study this, I believe, in the early 80s as potential school site. These sections that are shown with little white peninsulas down in this plan throughout this section are owned by others than the North Penn School District. And throughout the whole subdivision, there are hundreds of owners who acquired, many of whom are still the original owners or descendants of the original owners that acquired them through these movie theater giveaways, not necessarily giveaways, but prizes. So you have a very wide variety of ownership of the pieces not owned by the school district. And we were hired as real estate consultants on behalf of the school district to attempt to go out and locate, number one, the owners. In many cases, that's a difficult thing because the tax records don't necessarily jive with the names that were on the original deeds. But we have attempted to contact all of the owners in an area which was defined by the area of concern for the potential school site. And that ran from, if you follow this handout map, from along First Avenue going in a westerly direction up to Fifth Avenue, which would be a fairly rectangular parcel of ground. And in the original area of concern, there was a section that went on up to 6th Avenue. The areas west of 6th Avenue, as you can see, early on, the school district made a determination that they would not be interested in trying to acquire those, so there's very little blue area in that section west of 6th Avenue. The reason for that is that at about 6th Avenue, and if you see the one parcel between 5th and 6th that has a black X over it, it's white background but has a black X over it, that's one owner, and there is a residence there. And from that parcel down to Welsh Road, there's a dramatic difference in the contours of the ground and a stream that literally divides the Lansdale Square subdivision into two separate sections, so that the section that the school district has acquired is the high ground, the usable ground, and as you go further west with this dip and then coming back up, it becomes less desirable ground. So our concentration has been, put this other plan up in. If you go to the next parcel,
Planes are swamps. That's what it looks like.
the charge that we were given by the school district was to fill in the area by trying to acquire these individual white spots in the plan previously. We've contacted individual owners in that area and have recommended to the school district that they purchase those that we've been able to contact and are willing to sell. And to date, that consisted of 38 lots, filling in some of those spots that are now in this top plan. We negotiated previously an exchange agreement with an individual who had a large number of lots in the total Lansdale Square to obtain lots in this main area of concern from that individual for lots that the school district had up in this section, which filled in some of the areas that he needed, and that was 37 lots. We presently have an agreement on this yellow parcel up here that the school district has negotiated of 3 lots, which has a title insurance problem that's still being worked on as to whether that will move forward. There remains in here, other than the exchange that we're talking about tonight, 6 lots up in this section that are owned by one individual, family by the name of Bond, who owned a large farm, one of the meat processing company until just recently, who over the years have picked up a lot of lots up through this section, these lots here. There are 4 lots in here that we've been in negotiation with the lady that owns those lots, and have not been able to come to terms with her to date, but that's still ongoing and still a possibility. There are 2 lots of an individual here who has some title problems, and we haven't been able to solve that yet, but we are negotiating with that individual. This parcel up here that has a large black line on is a home and occupied, and we were told not to try to negotiate to purchase that at this time. So that is an exclusion. The lots that the subject of this proposal family by the name of Bronick, who over the years has made a business out of doing the same thing really the school district did over the years, and that is follow tax sales and buy these lots as they became available and attempt to plot them together. They have done this throughout the whole county. There are about 5 or 6 businesses that do this as a real estate investment type thing. The Bronick family has and owns a large number of lots in Lansdale Square. They have them in about 5 different corporate names. But we have been dealing with one individual that has the authority to represent all of those various corporations. The agreement that is being discussed for this transfer would be one agreement of sale that would affect all of the corporations and all of the lots that we're talking about, although some of the lots we're talking about are in different individual names, different corporate names. There's 175 lots that we're suggesting to you that would be exchanged by Bronick to the school district, and 174 lots that the school district would exchange to Bronick. The sections in red are ones that are now currently owned by the school district that we're suggesting under this agreement of sale would be conveyed to Bronick. And the fill-in area in blue throughout this whole section, most of which, other than those that I just pointed out, are owned by Bronick. And there are 85 lots in this section of Bronick's, including this whole strip down here, which I'll speak to in a minute. 85 along here, 88 of Bronick lots in here, and picking up 2 over here to fill in this section, and I'll touch on that in a minute. The sections over here, there are 83 lots of the school district to be conveyed by you to Bronick, and this is in the area that has not been considered the major area of concern for a potential school site. There are 91 lots here. This again is Orvilla Road, the Plains Church up here, the Welsh Road. There are 91 lots in this section, and 1 lot is already owned by Bronick, and Bronick already owns these lots that we're proposing that you would convey to him. This keeps a rectangular piece of ground for a potential school site of about 45 acres. There's an additional 8 acres in what's still left in blue through this section. Again, the stream and the difference in the contours starts right about through here. Well, it starts right here and works its way down to Welsh Road and goes under Welsh Road. This area is still fairly level and fairly high and fairly usable. One reason that we have tried to keep this, you had owned a lot of it, but we're filling in that section with this exchange. And as I said, we're filling in this section here. Originally, the area of concern for a potential school that was shown to us before we were hired came to here, leaving this strip remaining in the title to Bronick. We recommended, and the school district, I think, felt that there was value in that recommendation, that we really ought to have this, because the day ever came that you did build a school here and went through condemnation to acquire what you needed out of the balance of the ground. In our opinion, the damages to this piece because of his inability to have access would be as high as if you owned it. So we have, in this exchange, got this piece of ground now going to the school district. Presently, there's a 42-acre, disregard this, but from this property line, behind this property, it's not part of Lansdale Square and never was. There's a 42-acre parcel here of vacant ground. That's another reason, in our opinion, that if there's ever a merger of any of that ground along with the Lansdale Square ground that you own, having the ability of that being contiguous is important. Yes, that's it.
Great, thank you, Charles.
I'm open to
Are there any questions? It looks like a great strategic swap of land. And appreciate you putting all this together. Any questions from the board members of the proposed swap? I might point out that actually we're looking at it a little sideways. If you really want to do it right, Welsh Road goes this way and Orville goes down here. And I think the north marking on the maps are wrong. Just in case you were as disoriented when you looked at this thing as I was. North's up that way.
north.
I think they're right.
They're right.
It's right.
You're just disoriented.
Streets that are here don't go north and south. They go sort of at an angle.
Even so, if they're like this, is Snyder's north of this property?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't know it from this map.
Sure you would.
No, because Orville Road is here and Snyder's up here.
But if you go across the field,
North is showing this way.
I want to suggest a 5-minute recess so we can wake up for curriculum.
Whatever.
Come on, Art.
I've had enough.
What do you think?
I've had enough.
Hey, Justin, where's Hatfield meet on this map? It's over here.
right here.
Are we discussing solely the swap? Is that all
Yes.
we're discussing tonight?
Swap. There will be
Not the swamp, the swap.
There will be additional items on the agenda for Thursday night. We have since gotten an agreement on 3 other lots. We are also asking you to recommend taking quiet title. Chuck needs direction on that. And I guess dealing with paper
Yeah, I know, I
streets.
saw it.
What's our total acre?
Okay, the paper, so that does come up. What are we doing with the paper streets?
40.
40 or so.
With the paper streets.
Should be reversed.
I mean, my understanding, oh, the heck with the, I mean, my understanding, Art, was that in order for us to do anything with this property, and this was 2 years ago when we first looked at it, and we've been looking at it forever, and eventually I think we're just gonna end up selling it, but anyway. My understanding was that in order for us to do anything with this property, we had to be able to contact every single owner who's backed up in every single street. But that's never been done.
We're gonna be every single one in the streets that we're recommending vacating.
No, we're not.
Well, with some exceptions.
No, we're not. I mean, we've got
There's only a
Harding
couple now,
Street,
we're
and those
trying to get
people.
those.
What do you mean?
Right, but you have to take the whole person. In other words, from my understanding was that Park Avenue was Park Avenue through, not just Park Avenue from Second Avenue to Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, but if you look at your agreement and the way Mr. Potash has worded that, he's telling you specifically what he's going to vacate.
Right.
Garfield Street between First Avenue and Second Avenue. Gerard Street between First Avenue and Second Avenue. Our intent will be next Thursday night.
You got to, otherwise it looks like you're playing.
So we are vacating what we can vacate now without condemnation.
Okay, that was not my understanding before. My understanding was that you, even though if you were vacating your section, people who would have access to and from those streets still had to be talked to and still had to be found. Now, if that's changed, that's great.
But look at it though, Carmen, just about every one of those streets has at least one resident on. Do you think those people want a street going past them? Because right now, there's none. They have the use, probably use of that line.
No, it was just, it's a legality, and that was the whole point that was brought up. And the understanding, and maybe Charlie can clarify this, but the understanding was that you had to, if you were going to put a road in, this Park Avenue Road, that this person up in this Block 7 up in, by Harding and that, those people had to be contacted and told that there was now a road going and give approval. Now, I'm not sure if that's still correct.
Well, that's
you know.
still correct, but when you look at this, it was tough. The first all-blue drawing, it's tough to vacate.
I agree.
Because of so many white spaces.
Right, but
And
we
he's
still
now-
have this, we still have the issue of trying to get a hold of some of these people. And that's what I was trying to say,
But
because,
he's not vacating those streets yet. If you
that's
read,
I think he's,
if you read in the agreement, the vacation, abandonment of the following streets, you will see what he's doing now.
so he's only vacating
Piecemealing.
parts of those streets, and it doesn't matter that they have no access to those streets, even though they're off of these
The
streets?
point is this, if you look at Exhibit B, if he vacates this, they are us. They
Okay.
want to get down to here.
But how about getting up?
Well, but they don't, there's no egress to get up anyhow.
Yeah, I was just concerned
I think that
about
the lawyer is suggesting that he can do this, and it's gonna help us, and I don't, the legality is legality.
I mean, we've had a lot of discussions, and I think we're at the point now where Charles can proceed in accordance with the agreement on the abandonment of vacation, don't you, of the streets?
Yeah. From our point of view, the administration, I'd like to thank you and Ed, because you've really been tenacious with this work, and if you ever play Monopoly, I want to be on your team.
Very much like that game. I'll give you 6th Street for Park Avenue.
Yeah, that's what it feels like on these things.
Great, well, thank you, Charles. Is there
An
any
elementary school?
questions from the audience?
Okay.
Great, all right. Thank you, Charles. Let's move on to the elementary science curriculum. Yeah, let's Tom admit I was right. Here, this, pass this around. Bill.
Thanks, Joe.
How we do administration.
Amanda Brown, the our supervisor of science, is the chairperson of the science curriculum review committee. That committee has, for notice, been functioning for quite a long time. In fact, I think it's almost forever. We want to put before you tonight the preliminary proposal. This is far from a completed work, but we felt that we are far enough along that it would be appropriate for Donna to review it with you and then ask for your reaction and perhaps some input for the committee to consider further. Don?
Okay, our purpose here is for you to consider some of the topics and
Excuse me, Donna.
purposes.
Could you make sure
Yes.
the mic is uncovered so that they can hear you?
Okay, is that better?
Great.
Okay. This is for you to understand some of the topics and the sequence of topics that we'll be covering in elementary science, grades K through 6. The committee has been hard at work on this project and will continue to work on it until we have a document that we consider to be a little more refined. So you are looking at a preliminary draft, and I caution you on that. For example, we may have some shifts in topic from one grade level to another as we seek to integrate curricular areas. For example, we are looking at both health and social studies, seeing where topics overlap. And it certainly makes sense, for example, that if a topic is covered in health in grade 5, but we have it in science in grade 6, it would make sense to flip that topic so that there's kind of double duty there. And that's one of the things that the committee is looking at and has begun work on. If you look here, you'll see a sequence of developmentally appropriate topics for very young children through more developmental maturity. as we go up through grade 6. This also takes into consideration the fact that grade 6 now will be remaining in the elementary school, and this sequences things a little bit better than the present configuration. So we've taken the reconfiguration of grade levels into consideration as well in looking at scope and sequence. In arriving at this type of document, we've looked at all kinds of trends on the national level in science education. For example, most recently published and coming to our district shortly will be the benchmarks in science education, which has been worked upon by a great number of people and through the sponsorship of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And this is an organization that has a long history in science education and has been on the forefront of curricular change. And this is something that we're using as a base, as are many districts across the country. I guess many scientists have said that you stand on the shoulders of giants, and we hope to do that too. We're not about to reinvent the wheel. We're about to take the best that's out there and tailor it for our purposes. And that's what you see here as a document. You'll also see as you read through it that we're looking for children at each grade level to have a balance of life science, physical science, earth and space science, and to integrate technology within science education as much as possible. So we're looking at something that we feel is definitely on the cutting edge of science education. We have some questions about this.
Any questions? I think it's great.
One of the things we'd like to do is, and we'll check with the board, as you know, we've been piloting some of the hands-on science kits, and we'd really like to find some time, and I'll check with board members, or my secretary will, to invite you in for an evening to actually go through a few demonstration lessons with some hands-on science, so you can see how some of these objectives or concepts here can be taught to students with hands-on. No, we'll do that without a public meeting. We'll just invite you in
So we can
to
blow out the
practice and
schools.
try it.
Question.
Get the kids to explain it to us.
Well, what we'll actually do, Dick, we'll ask one of our teachers who's currently using a unit to just take selected experiences from it, and it would probably be an hour. Yeah. We've been doing that at various parent meetings across the system with great success. And the effect of it is parents leave and say, I understand now why the youngsters are so excited. You talk about hands-on science, that's one thing, but it takes on a whole different meaning when you experience it directly.
Absolutely.
We're going to let these board members use a compass and look at maps.
Well, if there happens to
I know where
be
the
a
sun
unit on that
rises.
subject, so.
A couple of questions. This is a very ambitious grouping and such. I guess my question is, would the hands-on incorporate various points together? Because if you're dealing with these individually, then you've got a good part of the school day or the school year devoted strictly to science, which to me isn't bad, but on the other hand, it is supposed to be a rounded education. Incorporate it within your hands-on, you're taking 3 or 4 objectives and covering all of those. Okay.
There are, as you see, a list of objectives, but you're absolutely right. What this would look like when fully implemented might be 3 or 4 major units or 3 or 4 major topics, each of which could run 6 to 8 weeks at this point. You should also note that in the next topic that we take up, the proposal to the Merck Institute, it proposes funding for what is phase 1. This is going to be different than when we installed math, for example, or social studies. We did it all at one time. Because of the training and the refurbishing and things that we talked about back in November, this will be phased in probably over a 2, perhaps even a 3-year period. So in the interim, the program will move constantly in the direction of more hands-on science. Will increase each year, but we will still maintain the textbook that we currently have until we get there. And each year that will diminish as the other.
How much of a
increases.
percentage do you see being replaced every year in a hands-on environment?
Well, as you'll see in the next presentation, that we plan 2 units at every grade level in 11 of the schools, and 1 unit next year in the 2 new ones. And the reasoning behind that is those people have so many things to deal with in that year. So I would think that we'll be nearly halfway in 94, 95, Carmen, and 95, 96. That's open to question. We're not sure. We need to see how 94, 95 works before we say how much further to go. Our information from other school districts that have done this is that we are rather ambitious. We still think we can do it. After 94, 95, we may decide to phase it out a little bit more.
What type of in-services are you planning to cover all of this transition?
Yes.
This is all the next presentation? Sorry.
Yeah, you're ahead of us a little bit.
Okay, too many questions. Okay. Yeah, I think this is great, and I think K-6 is fantastic. Being secondary ed, I really would like to see something done at the secondary level. And
We haven't left that out.
Yeah.
The reason you see this here is because of the Merck Institute's focus being a K-8 focus. But we certainly haven't left out the secondary level, and in fact, we have a secondary discussion group within the Science Review Committee working on that very process. This also incorporates the idea that instead of really bombarding kids with tons and tons of factoids that they'll simply spit back at us, this allows kids to study fewer topics in greater depth and to really gain the process skills in science that we consider to be important.
And all through this, when you're talking about the process, the words that I love, use their senses, explore, compare and measure, use and interpret, develop inquiry skills, understand and use. I mean, it's just a constant addition onto those type of skills all the way through, types of things that I just love to see.
We're not asking you for action. We will be back, hopefully, by June, because we would like to get final approval for this, because everything that we're going to do next year builds on it. That's the purpose of coming to you tonight with a preliminary proposal. It doesn't make sense to us. We asked you in November to fund pilot materials in conjunction with Merck. We're now asking you to fund a significant amount for next year. We felt we needed to give this to you so you could see where this is all going. And the revisions that we make, we'll come back and talk about those.
We'll also be back with secondary ideas and proposals for the 95, 96 school year.
I will say that, I've been hearing from people at the secondary ed level, and though they see this as a great opportunity for K-6, they feel that, or K-8, I imagine you'll do 7th and 8th, they see that, they perceive it that the high school children have just been, forgotten. And, that's the perception, and some of the high school programs really need some major revamping. Having been involved in and talked to a lot of parents, there's a lot of still textbook, very little hands-on, or if hands-on, it's not exactly what you would call up-to-date hands-on. I mean, we talked about the textbooks going back to the 1920s. Yeah.
Right. Well, not quite that far, but I do remember your comments from the last time I was here, and in fact, we have addressed that issue head-on. We have taken care of the issue of the biology, the honors biology, and have a recommendation for a textbook ready. And also with genetics, which is probably the biological science which is changing most rapidly. And we have made a recommendation for that textbook change as well.
I just don't want, as I said, parents are feeling that everything is being concentrated at the elementary level, and that the high school children, they're there, too bad, they went through. And a hands-on program at the high school level certainly can be implemented. Obviously not as ambitiously, but certainly can be implemented.
And certainly another critical component that we haven't forgotten is the middle school level.
Sure.
That's a very important component in today's education, because these are the kids that are changing most rapidly, and we need to address their needs in terms of science. So we haven't left it out.
Good.
Any other board questions?
I see science fairs then, are we going to
Any
have them
questions from the audience?
school?
That would be the next proposal.
Science
You
fairs
warm it
for
up out there?
No, I'm freezing.
Well, we're trying to
It's
cool
cold
the
in
board
here.
off here. Get on with it and stop talking.
Listen, I've gotten coffees.
Yeah,
My
5
tie
minute
is
break.
Okay, can we move on to the Merck Institute? David, you, I'm sorry? Oh. Thank you. I didn't hear you over there. Just speak up.
I can't wait. I'm really excited about the entire program, and I can't wait till it is, at least in Hatfield, but really for the whole district. But I'm looking forward to it. It's
Great, thank you. We're just as anxious, believe me.
Thanks. And I'm glad Merck's here.
Moving on then to the next topic, which is the proposal to the Merck Institute for Science Education. I think the board and the community know that we have been involved in this partnership now for somewhat over a year. We made our first proposal in November. It funded our activities jointly between Merck and the school district for the balance of this year. And Donna in a minute is going to explain the proposal that we will put forward in early May. That's the reason for putting it on the agenda at this time. For 94-95, we are asking for $215,500 roughly, of which the school district would contribute a little more than $71,000, and we feel comfortable that we will receive a little bit more than $144,000 from Merck. There are some required elements of that proposal, and Donna will review those with you.
When we first worked with the Merck Institute, 5 essential elements of an exemplary elementary science program were identified. We have been asked to frame our proposal and the development of the implementation of that proposal within those 5 areas that you see on the green sheet. Those areas are explained within the proposal. The whole proposal is formatted that way in your attachment. The first part of that proposal involves the use of high-quality educational materials and equipment. These are the actual hands-on materials that the children use. You'll notice that our projection for 1994-95 would involve having our present elementary schools teach 2 units at each grade level, K through 6. The 2 new schools, as Charlie has already explained, because they are new and being established and establishing really their base of operations, we would ask to teach a single unit per grade level. And you'll notice in the overview that we would project that we would be able to turn many of those kits around. That would be part of our proposal. Over the long haul, that would be our ultimate plan, to refurbish those units and turn them out as quickly as we can, roughly a 1-week turnaround. That would allow us to use kits as many as 3 times per year, approximately. You'll notice that the units we have listed are listed by grade level. And these are ones that we now have in pilot test. And then if you'll go over to the next page, with the equipment portion, we're always looking for microscopes. This year we were able to purchase 6 microscopes. And as soon as they were out of the box, within hours, they were in the schools being used. And they are in the schools right now, and I still have a list of people who want their use, and we're cycling those as quickly as we can. We're also looking for more digital balances, because all these types of equipment support many, many units. For example, there's a unit called MicroWorlds for 5th grade, and little microscopes do come with the unit, and kids can use those. And they can fulfill all the objectives of the unit with those little microscopes, which are amazingly powerful. At the same time, every child wants to use a real microscope. and wants to be a real scientist and wants to go beyond the confines of that lesson. So we've established the need, a clear need for additional microscopes. And teachers have gone beyond many of the lessons within the kits. So that's the need for that. And certainly we have a need for safety goggles. We want to initiate the mindset that safety is number one, whether you're in elementary school or secondary school or industry, that this is important. And it's certainly important in the industrial world. It's important in every workplace. And we want to bring those habits to children very early. We are also looking to increase and develop our planetarium program. We have a wonderful facility here at North Penn. And in fact, we'll be utilizing that tomorrow for our review committee meeting. I found that many of the members of the review committee had not actually been in the planetarium nor experienced a program within there. So we're going to take a brief period of time tomorrow at the start of our meeting to have people experience our wonderful facility, which is quite a remarkable one. The sterilizing cabinet is on there because as goggles are returned to a resource center, they have to be sterilized before they're sent out again, and that's a health issue. A very large portion of this budget hinges on professional development. One of the keys to implementing a good science program, a good hands-on science program, is to provide that professional development for teachers. And this is a key. We will continue with the in-service training. This is the mechanics of how to teach a unit and to be familiar with all the materials in it and to be able to troubleshoot it or assist children in troubleshooting it. We also look to, if you look at Section B, and this is something that has not been completely developed yet. It was a suggestion of Dr. Paravano that we consider something like a Science Enrichment Institute, to go beyond the mechanics of just teaching a unit, but to look at science education in a very broad perspective, to look at issues of broader things like assessment, to look at things like curriculum development, to look at things, the way children learn. Very important issues for all teachers who teach science. That could end up to be a summer activity. We're really not sure what that's going to look like yet, but it's going to be very important that we put this kind of step beyond into our budget. In conference attendance, we feel that this is very important in the professional development of teachers. During this present year, we were able to send 4 elementary teachers to the National Science Teachers Conference in Anaheim, California, and they gained a great deal from that experience. We will be listening to their report tomorrow at our committee meeting. I've already asked them some specific questions related to their experience and gave them an overview before they went out, gave them some tips on conference attendance. And there were about, I think Carla said today, 15,000 teachers that attended that conference. The next section that you see on here is the support system. This represents a resource center. The resource center is not only a physical place, but it's a place that would allow us to centralize our resources and make them available to teachers on a very regular basis. So that, for example, if a teacher is doing 4 units per year, we will be able to schedule those 4 units, give that teacher the times when those units will arrive. When the teacher is finished with a unit, comes back to the resource center, it's refurbished and sent somewhere else with about a week turnaround. Obviously, we need some materials to do that and some computer support to inventory and track materials. And that's what that portion of the budget is for. The actual location will be a temporary one at the present time. It will be rooms 24 and 25 in Penndale. That will be our temporary resource center. Those 2 rooms, luckily for us, are windowless, which means you can pack a lot of materials in there. And we've already projected in a preliminary way how we will structure those rooms. We need to work further with the architect to define exactly how they will be arranged. Assessment is also a very important piece here. We've budgeted money to develop assessment tools. We also expect to coordinate our work with the District Assessment Committee, which is chaired by Dave Decker. With administrative community support, we hope for continuation of some of the workshops we have begun this year. We have begun quite a bit of parent awareness training, which has really been well received. Parents become very enthusiastic as they become more aware and participate in the kinds of activities that we do with their children. They have a greater appreciation of what's going on in the classroom, and I think a better facility to handle the kinds of questions that they get when kids come home. I honestly expect that as children become more involved in these types of activities, when they come home and mom and dad ask, what did you do in school today? If they were like my kids, the usual response was, oh, nothing. I think with these kinds of events, we're going to have a lot more than, oh, nothing. It will be a lot of exciting things going on in school today. We also expect to have some great changes in science fairs. Based upon some of the experiences at Ursinus College, and I was a chaperone there, I felt that we really need to take a better handle on what we do with science fair and how we represent ourselves to the community at large and the community beyond North Penn. I expect that as an outgrowth of this type of program in elementary, we'll have much greater participation in science fairs. We're going to get a lot more kids who are excited about science and who will want to bring that message not only to adults but to other children. And I would hope that we could use our cable capabilities for children to talk to other children about what it's like to do a good project, what makes a good project, because kids are some of the best communicators to other children. And so I would expect that we're going to see some big changes with science fairs. I participated this year with Sue Seekinson in training some MERC volunteers, and I also expect that that will continue. And we're going to try to work that in with our regular community volunteer system because it's very important that I think we recognize the MERC volunteers as well as our other community volunteers. We expect to reach more people via the print media, via video. We have great resources here, and we will use them. We have a lot of people here who are tireless, and we just have to keep going. I hope that we'll do more in the career information area, too. I participated with a group of kids from North Penn High School in a trip to MERC, and there were a lot of students who simply weren't aware of the kinds of opportunities that were there, the varied types of careers. And kids actually asked questions. They asked lots of questions, such as, what kind of degree do you need to do this type of work? It was wonderful to hear that, and it was unprompted, it was honest, and the responses that they had from the MERC scientists were also very, very nice, responsive types of answers that were really helpful to kids. So the total budget there, is, as you can see from the district, is about $70,000, and we're looking to about $144,000 for MERC to continue this program.
I would just add, I think those are very realistic numbers because we have done some private negotiating with Dr. Parravano in terms of what he thought might be reasonable numbers. So I think that when we get final approval from the Institute, I expect it to look very much the way it looks here. That was our experience the first time. He was very complimentary about the fact that we addressed all the areas and seemed to price things in a reasonable fashion, and we think that experience will happen again.
It certainly must say it's an ambitious program, but when you consider how many children it will impact, the cost per student is minimal. So I think it's great.
It's really the best deal in town. We're going to invest 70 and get, double the money.
Cattle futures.
That's right. That was a better deal than this, though.
Only if you get red bone.
On your,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Don, I have a question. There's currently something that goes on in the district at the elementary schools called Math Night. Dave Decker runs. And I don't know if it's at all schools, but we've had it at where my kids go. And if you ever want to see a bunch of kids having fun with math, go to one of these things. And I'm wondering if we could have a science night, same idea, with parents I mean, you know, once you get the parents involved, we got a lot of support. But if you get them, we're gonna have a science night, like we have math night, all little experiments going on.
We have that planned.
Okay.
We have one planned for CULP, and we've shifted the date a little bit just because it conflicted with a couple of concerts and some other things. But it will be modeled on a math night. Parents and kids will actually go to different stations and perform experiments. Some of them will be a little bit mysterious, and they won't get the answers until they pick up a packet on the way home with some other suggested activities that they can do at home. We've kind of allowed these parent awareness sessions to grow from school to school, and also to take different forms depending upon whatever the perceived need was at the school, whether it was from the home and school association, whether it was from principal, whether it was from specific teachers. But that indeed is a great suggestion. I've seen that work in many cases, and we're hoping for a very successful night at CULP. We're actually going to run it in 2 sessions because we expect very heavy attendance.
I see microscopes on here. Can you tell me what ratio we're looking for, or from where we're at right now? How many, you say you have some, but...
Well, it's hard to give you a specific ratio. For example, when I take microscopes to a school, I will take them to a school based upon a specific teacher request. So, for example, a teacher called me from Nash and asked for microscopes. I brought over 4. So we had 4 for a class of 24.
But that was only temporary.
That was only temporary.
Are we looking to actually, have a microscope and, a certain level of microscopes that stay there every day?
We own a very limited number of what I would call, good microscopes, so we will probably be adding some over the next couple of years. We really don't need a lot of them, and we really haven't decided, and we don't need a lot of them to be in a school all the time. We may decide that we want a few to be there because there are incidental experiences that come up that you can't plan ahead. Donna knows that when the program is fully outlined, we know that some units will require them, and we can gather them up and then we can move those around. But we may down the road say, we're going to put X number in a building so that they're there, so that when an experience comes up, it's on the spot.
Well, and plus, just trying to figure out the logistics of when you can get one. You're right in the middle of something, and it would be perfect for a microscope. I would like to see one for each grade level at least, and that way you've only got 3 or 4 teachers that are having to, schedule the use of it, and plus the more often. If we're moving towards
is what we'll do.
Right.
We don't have any specific goals in that direction. Right now, we're just looking to get some that can rotate around, like a traveling.
We'll also look for more feedback from teachers as to what their specific needs may be, and see how we can develop a delivery system to accommodate those needs.
In your career information and your speakers, I think I had mentioned before that I would like to see something done for summer programs. Are you going to be incorporating that within that career information?
We will certainly try to do that.
We're talking about a voluntary science fair.
No. I'm about information about summer programs that children can get involved in. There's
Like a science camp.
There's science camps. The universities have programs. There's grants that they can get. There's scholarships that children can get. As I stated once before, to get them involved outside of school and to continue on. There's after-school programs, there's Saturday programs.
I think we need to package that well. And certainly one of the other things that we plan, not only to promote career information and science nights, but to additionally promote science fair. We expect to begin early with back-to-school nights in promoting that type of information.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? All frozen by now.
No, I'm warmer.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Technology, David.
Well, in the interest of time, I think I'm going to pass on the overhead projector and just, the board has a copy of the overhead slides I was going to use. I think I'll do a pretty good job of describing what was in those. Tonight, I'm asking the board to endorse a process that will result in a strategic plan for the implementation and the use of technology in the North Penn School District. I view the process as potentially one of the most important endeavors that the school district will undertake this year. We live in an information age, an age characterized by global interdependence, knowledge proliferation, and information processing. We must begin the planning process that will allow this school district to provide an education that is relevant to the present and to the 21st century. Why do we need a plan? A strategic plan for technology will help support the district's goals and visions. Our statement of vision says that our learning environment will be characterized by a continuing pursuit of comprehensive, future-oriented educational programming which helps students accommodate to change. And one of our 1993-94 district goals is to integrate and expand technology into instructional administrative applications. A plan will help us achieve these goals. In addition, to establish a clear district focus and purpose for technology, to help us define areas of need for staff development, and to define long-term fiscally responsible allocations. An informal group was called together by Dr. Elko and myself to discuss how the district could go about the strategic planning process. The group consisted of myself, Dr. Elko, Susan Sinkinson, Bill Hartenstein, Dave Decker, Don Venema, Charlie Keffer, Joe Nolan, Elaine Seiler, and Mike Mismano. We have outlined 6 phases of a strategic planning process, and they are, and I left my own slide in a different place. Let me borrow yours, thank you. Establish planning teams, planning team preparation, a district-wide assessment, develop the actual strategic planning document, implement the strategic plan, and periodic review. Phase 1 will be to establish 2 planning teams. The first will be called a technology planning team. Its charge will be to develop and implement a strategic plan for the use of technology in the school district. The membership will include North Penn School District staff, students, school directors, and intermediate unit experts. Staff representation will include the many diverse employee groups such as the major curriculum areas, special subject areas, and various grade level teachers. In addition, these people will have to have competence in an area of expertise. They will have to have the respect of their peers. They will have to have leadership potential, an interest or experience in technology, and interest in helping the school district become a leader in technology. Their responsibilities will be to identify a broad range of existing and emerging technologies, examine ways in which technology can improve the teaching learning process, plan for the integration of technology into the curriculum, examine ways in which technology can improve the efficiency and effectiveness of all district employees, plan for the training of staff and students in the use of technology, provide a framework for the appropriation of resources related to technology, utilize the strategic planning process to educate and inform staff, students, and the community about technology and its uses. The second group will be called a technology advisory team. Their job will be to provide technical support for the technology planning team. These people will come from industry, business, or the community, and they will all have to have a proven expertise in one or more information technology disciplines. Their responsibilities will be to provide the perspective of the business and industry community, provide an ongoing network of technological resources, act as a resource in identifying new emerging technologies, identify model practices using technology, act as a sounding board for the ideas that are generated, review and validate the strategic planning process as well as the proposed plan in all of its various phases of development. The other parts of the process are team preparation, which will include orientations that will define the team's roles and responsibilities, and seminars by experts that will instruct team members in the areas of computers and networking, telecommunications, multimedia, instructional technologies, and library and information sciences. The next phase will be the district-wide assessment. What is the current use of technology in the district? This kind of assessment may require building-level inventories of computer hardware and software, local area networks, VCRs, faxes, and television equipment. Staff and student surveys may also be used to determine how technology is being used, how effectively it is being used, and levels of technology awareness. In developing the strategic planning process, the focus will have to be on a limited number of goals. Such goals could be, but are certainly not limited to, the use of computers as they relate to the curriculum, providing enhanced telecommunications throughout the district, distance learning, staff development, or enhanced media centers. The document will integrate the ideas of the district's diverse employee groups. Next phase would be to implement the plan. Implementing technology begins a process that changes the way people do things and in turn changes what people want and need to do. Let me repeat that one more time. It's my favorite part of this. Implementing technology begins a process that changes the way people do things and in turn changes what people want and need to do. Implementation will mean making sure that employees, school directors, students and their parents, and the community are aware of and understand the plan's contents so that they can begin to think in terms of how technology can improve their own efforts. And finally, periodic review. While a good plan provides a framework, direction, and goals, it is not the end of the process. The plan's progress will be evaluated on a periodic basis and will be revised as frequently as necessary to keep pace with the rapidly changing technological environment. The process of developing a strategic plan as it's being proposed will be a long one. Tonight, I ask that we as a board get this process started by endorsing it and allowing the administration to begin to select committee members that meet the criteria that were outlined. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there a guesstimate time period before we actually get down to implement a strategic plan?
Implementing it?
Implementing?
Yeah.
6 months.
It would be at least a year, I would believe. The
6 months.
problem in that year will be forming a group of people that can manage the time period in between, because certainly things will not stand still. We'll have purchases to make for computer labs that meet our curriculum as we've already outlined it. Those purchases will need to be made. And I think perhaps we might be able to use the Technology Advisory Committee and their technical expertise to try to guide us in directions that would give us essentially the best bang for the buck in the interim period until the strategic plan becomes available.
Thank you.
David, can I add on to what you said? I think there's two important things about the strategic plan. One, for technology, the technology part will be the first in a step of our global strategic plan for the district, and will be one of the major portions of the overall strategic plan. Right now, we're looking at next month giving you an overview of what those ingredients of the strategic plan will encompass. Obviously, technology is out in the front because we have already started it, and we know that this is an important and very crucial one, that it will be part of our strategic plan. We're just getting this one started a lot sooner. So I think that's important to note. Secondly, I think we might be able to establish with this a paradigm to use in the sense of committee assignments, or the way we use working groups to assist the board in working particular areas. For example, the two-tiered system where we have folks from the administration, teachers being part of this as the working levels, and then have an advisory committee from folks in the community that are experts in that area to provide that expertise, gets us a little bit away from the way we've done committee assignments in the past. For example, the high school task force was a mix of community and folks from the administration. This changes that, and this perhaps will provide us a very good barometer for how we're going to pursue. And if it works for this, we might want to look at using that for the other committee assignments. So I think this is a very important step that we're taking in this regard, and I'm looking around to find out if there's support from the rest of the
Dick,
board members.
I just want to say I'm not sure if this will be a paradigm shift when it comes to how we do committees, but in my view and the people that met to try to decide what these committees would look like, it's absolutely critical that these be district employees on the planning team. These are the people we need to educate. These are the people that need to dream how the process can change. No one else can do that.
Well, the reason I brought that up was because it is different from the way we do things now. And there's been some concern from fellow board members that the way we do things now might not be the best process. And we're looking for new ways to do that. This is an alternative that may work. And if it works in this, it certainly is incumbent on us to look at this for other types of committees to see if that's the right way to go. If it's not, I mean, there's nothing that says if we approve this, we have to do the other ones the same. The whole idea is, let's see if it works. It sounds like a very, very solid, good plan, and it gets us focused at the right area with the right people. And I think that's very important, especially in this area. So, I obviously lend my support to this, and I think it's very important.
I'd like to say that I've been waiting for years for this to be done. And certainly, I think we're moving in the right direction. It is long overdue. It's been well thought out. I've spoken to David about this, and certainly it's a good way to handle it. It's something that needs to be done. It's something that we have to look into because of technology changing as much. In your comments about the committees, I think it is a good way of looking at the committees. We're taking expertise from our community and using them to the best of the abilities, something that people are willing to take their time and energy, something that if we had to go outside, we'd have to pay for. And we have really a wealth of knowledge within our community. So in that sense, I think that's important. Your original planning team certainly has to underline, as you said, staff. It is important that the staff buy into any program that we put together. Definitely in the technology. Technology tends to scare people. There are 4 of us on the board here who work on it. We certainly know that people are very reluctant to use computers, to use them in education, to use them in office environments. But once they get into it, they really enjoy it. So we really need to sell this to a staff and to the students.
You're absolutely right. And our pre-planning team that David mentions had spent a great deal of time talking about the kind of characteristics and qualities that we wanted on that team from our staff. We want people that are interested in technology, that are going to be forward-thinking about technology and command the respect of their colleagues as well. And we have a list of people that, with your endorsement of this plan, we're ready to go out and invite them to get started, at least on the district team.
There are 4 or more that certainly use the technology.
Oh, no, there's 4 of us that actually work in the computer industry. I'm sure everybody else does, but 4 of us actually work in the computer industry. So I'm sure the rest of everybody else is very computer literate. I didn't mean to say that you didn't know what the computer was. I'm sorry. I apologize. You know how to use a typewriter?
Any other questions or comments regarding the strategic plan for technology? Any questions from the audience?
I'm Bill Taylor. I live in Lansdale. I apologize for the hour, but you talk. I had a shock. When this presentation began, I thought you were talking for a moment about the effort to shift the old general ed thing into technology. And then I realized that you weren't there at all. And there's so much mutual congratulation going on about this that I would be very wary about your material.
I'm not sure if I...
You might end up talking to yourselves. saying the same things over and over again because it fits in the, quote, technology. And it struck me that most of our children will climb all over this stuff. You give them half a chance. You know, you mentioned that there's microscopes, which are fairly simple. You give a child a computer, he's all over it. If you can't get your watch set, you give it to your kid, he fixes it. So you do have a problem possibly at the administration level with this, and with the older people like us. But I hope you don't lose track of that other thrust, which was to get the, 80% of the children in the school who aren't academically gung-ho picked up. We're worried about this shift of emphasis, what seemed to be one.
I think what we're trying to describe here with a plan that brings technology, and we're not just talking about computers here. For example, one of the things I mentioned was telecommunications. In my mind, if we had a phone system in this district that allowed every teacher to have a phone at their desk with a voicemail system, that they could leave homework assignments on a voicemail system. They could get messages from parents at any time of the day relating to their students. So we're not just talking about computers and networks, we're talking about anything. Cable television, satellite programs from other countries, phone systems, computers, multimedia systems for libraries, electronic libraries perhaps sometime in the future. And all of these resources affect everyone. It's not just an academic exercise to put a computer in a classroom and say, there it is. It really will encompass much, much more than that.
Still worried.
I think we'll allay your fears as parts of this start to emerge.
I will agree with them, though. It's amazing what children can pick up and how fast.
Once again, it's just not computers. And it's just not laboratories where they can go and do their reports. It's ways that it's a window into a universe that you can bring in that someday may replace textbooks. I mean, it's just not a computer sitting at a desk. It's much, much more than that.
Any other comments from the audience? Any other board comments? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
No executive session.
No executive session.
Yeah. Shots.